Chapter 2010. In the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located, after the golden thunderstorm had completely disappeared, not only did the sixth lightning tribulation not descend from the dark clouds, but the countless lightning bolts in the dark clouds began to surge violently. Golden-armored thunder god, extinction of all souls. Just as the lightning in the dark clouds surged violently, Thaling, who had returned to his peak state, quietly returned to the body of the victor. Looking at the lightning in the dark clouds that was surging and gathering, Thaling reminded with a grave expression. Golden-armored thunder god. Thaling's grave reminder made Yuhauran immediately think of the golden-armored thunder god formed by the 9th lightning tribulation when the long-armed ape was trying to break through to the divine beast realm. His originally calm expression also became grave. It didn't take long for the lightning to surge and gather in the dark clouds. It only took about 3 minutes. As the lightning in the dark clouds gradually calmed down, a golden giant of 100 meters in height, holding a golden giant sword, with a majestic expression, and wearing golden armor, stepped out of the dark clouds. The strength of a first-grade supreme martial artist. Sensing that the golden-armored thunder god that walked out of the dark clouds only had the strength of a first-grade supreme martial artist, Yuhauran breathed a sigh of relief, and the grave expression on his face gradually relaxed. After all, with the baptism of the 5th golden thunderstorm, his cultivation had successfully advanced to the peak of 3rd-grade martial god, and he also had the strength of a first-grade supreme martial artist. With the strong physical body of the wizard ancestor and the martial arts inherited from the wizard ancestor's memory, he could easily defeat and shatter the golden-armored thunder god. However, the relaxed expression did not last long, and it was broken by the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th golden-armored thunder gods that walked out of the dark clouds. When the 9th golden-armored thunder god with the strength of a first-grade supreme martial artist walked out of the dark clouds, Yuhauran's relaxed expression was replaced by a grave expression again, and his eyes revealed a worried expression as he asked, Thaling, do you think the 9 golden-armored thunder gods know the combined attack technique? By relying on the spatial law martial technique's instantaneous movement and then using the method of wandering around, it wasn't that he didn't have a chance to kill the 9 golden-armored thunder gods. However, he was worried that the other party would use a combination attack to increase their strength. After all, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the difference in strength between each small realm of the supreme martial artist could be described as the difference between heaven and earth. Yuhauran, this is merely the 6th lightning tribulation of the divine tribulation, and the golden-armored thunder god, which symbolizes the punishment of all living things, has already appeared. I'm afraid this is the first time since the creation of the world. Faced with Yuhauran's interrogation, Thaling shook his head and explained with a bitter smile. Therefore, whether or not the 9 golden armor divine thunders, which represent the limit of the number of golden armor divine thunders, will have to be experienced by yourself. Thaling's reply, which also didn't know the strength and means of the golden-armored thunder gods, made Yuhauran completely relieved of the heavy burden on his shoulders. After taking a deep breath, he dispersed the million-meter-tall ancestral Magus physical body and took out the Yuan Massacre sword that specialized in hurting the divine soul. He began to use the spatial law martial technique of instantaneous movement to test the strength and means of the golden-armored thunder gods, as well as to test whether the 9 golden-armored thunder gods had the ability to join forces. Fortunately, after nearly 50 close-range attacks, he couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief when he came to the final conclusion. This was because the 9 golden-armored thunder gods not only didn't have the means to launch a combination attack, but they also didn't have the consciousness given by the heavenly Tao rules. Hence, their attacking means were relatively simple. After completely putting down the worries in his heart, Yuhauran took the opportunity to take out the immortal trapping sword from his storage ring. He held the Yuan Massacre sword in his right hand that specialized in hurting the divine soul, and the immortal trapping sword in his left hand that specialized in hurting the physical body. Then, He began to kill the 9 golden armored thunder gods bit by bit with the spatial law martial technique of instantaneous movement. He had to admit that his plan of killing the golden armored thunder gods was very good at the beginning. When the 9 golden armored thunder gods couldn't catch up with the speed of instantaneous movement, they were not only flustered by the Yuan massacre sword and the immortal trapping sword, but also suffered injuries to their physical bodies and instinctive consciousness. This caused their strength to quickly fall to the high, middle, and early first-grade supreme martial artist, and could fall to the martial god realm at any time. However, the lack of the means to kill in one blow also gave the god's tribulation thunder god a chance to counterattack. Just as he used the immortal trapping sword to cut off the arm of one of the golden armored thunder gods, 9 streaks of golden lightning with a trace of purple suddenly struck out from the calm black clouds. However, the target of the 9 streaks of golden lightning wasn't Yu Haoran, but the 9 golden armored thunder gods condensed by the god's tribulation thunder god. Boom! With a roar that resounded through the clouds, the 9 golden armored thunder gods were completely shattered by the 9 streaks of golden lightning. However, the 9 golden armored thunder gods that had been smashed into pieces did not disappear completely. Countless golden thunderbolts quickly gathered together and gradually condensed into a golden armored thunder god that was 1,000 meters tall and had the aura of a second-grade supreme martial artist. Space strangulation. With the strength of the peak of the second-grade supreme martial artist realm, unless he used the trump card that he had prepared in advance, he definitely wouldn't be a match for the newly condensed golden armored thunder god with his current cultivation and strength. However, the trump cards that he had prepared in advance were used to deal with the last god's tribulation thunder god, as well as the supreme martial artists and half-tribulation immortal realm experts in the endless void. He couldn't use them easily for the time being. Therefore, without any hesitation, Yu Haoran directly used the martial technique of the law of space that he had comprehended during his closed-door cultivation, and directly used it on the golden armored thunder god that was condensing its body. Tear, condense. Smash, condense. Although the martial technique of the law of space strangulation couldn't completely interrupt the condensing of the god's tribulation thunder god, it could delay a certain amount of time for the condensing of the golden armored thunder god. This also made Yu Haoran happy. As he continued to use the space strangulation to delay the condensing of the golden armored thunder god, he quickly approached the golden armored thunder god and stopped 3 meters away from it. Then, when the space strangulation shattered a part of the golden armored thunder god's body, the devouring great skill directly absorbed and transformed a part of the golden lightning to weaken the strength of the golden armored thunder god and indirectly improve his cultivation and strength at the same time. Under this situation, not only did the god's tribulation thunder god fail to condense the golden armored thunder god, but Yu Haoran's cultivation smoothly advanced to the high 4th-grade martial god realm with the help of the pure lightning energy that he constantly devoured and transformed. Moreover, he had the strength of an early-stage 2nd-grade supreme martial artist. Forcibly interrupting the condensing of the golden armored thunder god was totally a blatant provocation to the god's tribulation thunder god. Chapter 2011. In the mountain where the 100 Chi Gate was located. Yu Haoran, be careful. Although the tower spirit didn't know what the 7th god's tribulation lightning would look like, it could tell that the god's tribulation lightning wouldn't be easy to deal with from the terrifying aura coming from the black clouds. Got it. After nodding his head, Yu Haoran quickly activated the physical defense of the wizard ancestor and directly activated the Rui Bell, which had been upgraded from the middle grade to the supreme level. At the same time, his divine thought set up spatial coordinates in the void above the mountain in advance, so that he could use the space rules of teleportation martial technique immediately. The 7th god's tribulation thunder from the dark clouds was completely different from the previous 6 gods' tribulation thunder. Not only was the process silent, but it was also shaped like a fishing net condensed by golden lightning. When Yuhauran saw the area covered by the golden lightning net, which directly covered the entire mountain range, he knew that the spatial coordinates he had set up beforehand had completely failed. This made him slightly flustered. Fists suppressing the world. Destruction. Fortunately, his strong state of mind allowed him to forcibly calm down his slightly flustered emotions. He quickly used the fist technique from the wizard ancestor and the sword technique from the destiny stone tablet to test the power of the fishing net condensed by the golden lightning. However, the results of the test made his face instantly turn gloomy. This was because regardless of whether it was the fist technique from the wizard ancestor or the sword technique from the destiny stone tablet, not only could they not break the defense of the fishing net, they could not even delay the fishing net from closing. This also meant that the fishing net condensed by the golden lightning was at least at the peak of the second-grade supreme level. In desperation, he could only use his first trump card in advance, which was the projection of Du Fengyuan sealed in the finger mark. However, just as he was about to release the seal on his finger, the blood-void beast guarding the north of the mountain consumed the remaining power of the rules of space and risked using its divine thought to warn him. If he could comprehend the mystery of the rules of space before the fishing net completely closed, his teleportation speed would be increased by at least several times, and he would be able to penetrate the fishing net condensed by the golden lightning. At the same time, the space strangulation, whose power was increased by more than 10 times, could directly break the strong defense of the fishing net and completely destroy the threat of the fishing net condensed by the golden lightning. 15 seconds. It would take at least 15 seconds for the fishing net to wrap up the entire mountain range. Considering that he might not be able to comprehend the profound mysteries of the law of space, he would need at least 2 to 3 seconds to undo the seal on his finger imprint and detonate Du Fengyuan's projection. In that case, he would only have 12 to 13 seconds to comprehend the profound mysteries of the laws of space. Therefore, Yuhauran did not waste any time. He quickly took out a space crystal the size of a basin and activated the essence of the law of space that the blood-void beast had taught him. He began to comprehend the mysteries of the law of space with all his might. When Yuhauran saw that the golden lightning fishing net was about to close up in a short amount of time, he did not try to think of a way to attack or dodge. Instead, he took out a space crystal to cultivate. This puzzled the countless experts around the mountain range and in the endless void. At the same time, disdain and mockery appeared in their eyes. After all, even with Yuhauran's monstrous talent and astounding comprehension ability, advancing in the profound mysteries of the laws of space in just a dozen or so seconds was undoubtedly a fool's dream. Moreover, the law of space that Yuhauran had comprehended was ranked third among the myriad laws of space. It was known as the law of space that no one had ever comprehended before. Therefore, in the eyes of the experts around the mountain range and in the boundless void, not only would Yuhauran be unable to withstand the golden lightning net from the seventh god tribulation lightning, but he would also be severely injured and his soul would be destroyed. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3 seconds. In the first 3 seconds, Yuhauran did not find any opportunity to advance in the profound mysteries of the laws of space at all. However, he did not panic at all. He continued to comprehend calmly. 4 seconds. 5 seconds. 6 seconds. In the middle 3 seconds, relying on his calm state and the essence of the law of space that the blood-void beast had imparted to him, he had successfully grasped a sliver of opportunity to advance. At this moment, the blood-void beast and the others guarding the mountain range immediately became nervous. Qin Lingfei and the sword without trace had almost charged out due to their impulsiveness. This was because the golden fishing net that was constantly closing in was less than 1,000 meters away from Hauran. 7 seconds. 8 seconds. 9 seconds. In the final 3 seconds, using the opportunity he had successfully grasped as well as the pure spatial energy within the spatial crystal, the law of space had finally advanced in the profound mysteries of the laws of space. Opening his eyes and looking at the golden fishing net that was less than 100 meters away from him, Yuhauran revealed a smile that confused and puzzled everyone around him. Spatial strangle. Raising his arm, he extended a finger and pointed at the fishing net above his head as he called out softly, "Poochie, Poochie, Poochie." Accompanied by the sound of tearing, the net made of golden lightning was cut apart, torn apart and shredded into pieces, section by section, inch by inch. In the end, it was forcefully absorbed and refined by Yuhauran's great devouring technique, transforming it into a source of energy for him to break through to a higher realm. How is this possible? Seeing the law of space martial technique that was at least 10 times more powerful than before, not to mention the countless experts hiding around the mountain range, even the Supremes and half-tribulation immortal experts in the endless void were extremely shocked. Through the cultivation that squeezed out one's potential, it might be possible to increase the power of the law of space martial technique. However, under such circumstances the increase was limited. Being able to increase the power by 1/5 was already heaven-defying. A 10-fold increase in power was something that could only be achieved if one made a breakthrough in the middle of a battle. Furthermore, it was a breakthrough in quality. This also meant that Yuhauran had only used 9 seconds to successfully advance his law of space to the profound mysteries of the law of space. At this moment, in addition to his identity as Destiny's child, the allegiance of the Destiny Steel and the Destiny Calamity Spirit Rat, as well as the threat of the complete version of Great Devouring Technique, the experts in the Endless Void had one more reason to kill Yuhauran. Although the amount of golden lightning in the fishing net was far less than the 5th golden lightning rain, the quality of the pure lightning energy contained in the fishing net was far superior to the 5th divine tribulation lightning punishment. Chapter 2012. In the mountain where the 100 Chi Gate was located, Yuhauran raised his head to look at the black clouds that were churning again and the dazzling lightning that was boiling again. After taking a deep breath, he swallowed the elixir that he had prepared beforehand to stabilize his cultivation level after breaking through. This was because, according to a normal heavenly tribulation experience, the last 2 most powerful gods' tribulation lightning punishments would take longer and longer time to form and descend in the end. Therefore, he used the elixir to stabilize his cultivation level after breaking through and adapt to the sudden increase in power after leveling up while waiting quietly for the 8th god's tribulation lightning punishment to descend. However, to Yuhauran and the people around him's surprise, the wait this time was a little longer. After waiting for almost 20 minutes, the black clouds in the void above the mountain finally calmed down completely. Roar. As soon as the dark clouds calmed down, a deafening dragon roar suddenly echoed between heaven and earth. This also made Yuhauran and the surrounding people reveal a trace of doubt in their eyes. This was because, according to a normal heavenly tribulation process, every god's tribulation lightning punishment would descend in a completely different form. Even the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd golden lightning punishment that descended at the beginning of the god's tribulation lightning punishment would have a completely different width and length. Therefore, after experiencing the golden dragon formed by the 4th god's tribulation lightning punishment, there shouldn't be any more god's tribulation lightning punishments for the 8th and 9th god's tribulation lightning punishment. However, when a god's dragon that was more than 100,000 meters long charged out of the black clouds, the confusion in everyone's eyes disappeared at the same time. At the same time, their faces were filled with anticipation. They were looking forward to the 8th god's tribulation lightning punishment appearing as they expected. Of course, not everyone was looking forward to it. For example, in the depths of the endless void, there was a green god's dragon that was more than 1,000,000 meters long on a huge planet that was filled with vitality. For example, in the depths of the endless void, there was a white tiger that was more than 1,000,000 meters tall on a huge planet that was filled with death aura. For example, in the depths of the endless void, there was a beautiful vermilion bird that was more than 1,000,000 meters tall on a huge planet that was burning with red flames. For example, in the depths of the endless void, on a huge planet surrounded by dense yellow gas, there was a ferocious black tortoise that was 1,000,000 meters long. At the same time, Yuhauran, who was floating in the clouds above the mountain range, had an extremely solemn expression on his face. The azure dragon that flew out of the black clouds did not launch a fierce attack on Yuhauran. Instead, it turned around and flew to the eastern edge of the mountain range. Woo! Just as the azure dragon arrived at the eastern edge of the mountain range, a tiger's roar resounded from the dark clouds. As the tiger's roar resounded through the clouds, a fierce white tiger that was over 100,000 meters tall emerged from the dark clouds. It then turned around and headed straight for the western edge of the mountain range. Screech! Just as the white tiger arrived at the western edge of the mountain range, another crisp and ear-piercing cry sounded from the black clouds. As the crisp and ear-piercing cry sounded, a vermilion bird that was over 100,000 meters tall and was burning with majestic flames flew out of the dark clouds. It then turned around and flew towards the southern edge of the mountain range. Hiss! Just as the vermilion bird arrived at the southern edge of the mountain range, another low roar sounded from the dark clouds. As the low roar sounded, a huge black tortoise that was over 100,000 meters long slowly crawled out of the dark clouds. It then turned around and crawled towards the northern edge of the mountain range. Looking at the four divine beasts that were at the peak of third-grade sovereign occupying the four directions of the mountain range, Yuhauran took a deep breath and tried his best to relieve the endless pressure that was surging in his heart. He then shouted towards the endless void with a hint of mockery in his voice. Sovereign Blue Dragon, Sovereign White Tiger, Sovereign Vermilion Bird, and Sovereign Black Tortoise, I wonder what you think when you see that the 8th bolt of divine tribulation lightning that I'm facing actually condensed into your original forms. Our thoughts are very simple. That is, Yuhauran, will eventually die under the 8th bolt of divine tribulation lightning. The hot-tempered white tiger immediately couldn't stand Yuhauran's mockery and retorted. In response, Yuhauran's eyes flashed with a hint of disdain and humiliation. Sovereign White Tiger, you want to destroy me, Yuhauran, with just these four beasts that don't have any self-awareness? You're daydreaming. Although the Blue Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise that occupied the four directions of the mountain range were condensed from the divine tribulation lightning, they were completely replicas of the four divine beasts in terms of shape, appearance, aura, and momentum. Yuhauran's verbal abuse of the four divine beasts was a naked humiliation to the four half-tribulation, immortal realm experts. Yuhauran, you're courting death. Therefore, after the hot-tempered white tiger shouted angrily, he immediately began to condense his projection that would descend on the Tianxian continent. Second brother, calm down and concentrate. Let's talk about all the grievances after the divine tribulation lightning is over. However, just as the white tiger was mobilizing the power of rules and preparing to condense his projection, the blue dragon, who was also suppressing his anger, ordered in a low voice. Phew! After taking 9 deep breaths, the white tiger finally suppressed the surging killing intent in his body. He dispersed the power of rules that he had just mobilized and waited quietly for the end of the divine tribulation lightning. Of course, what he was looking forward to the most was for Yuhauran to die in the 8th god's tribulation. Seeing that the white tiger sovereign didn't fall into his temporary trap in the end, a trace of disappointment flashed through Yuhauran's eyes. After that, he focused all of his attention on the four divine beasts occupying the four directions of the mountain range. Roar! Woo! Screech! Hiss! After the four divine beasts occupied the four directions of the mountain range, they still didn't attack Yuhauran. They just roared at the sky at the same time and gradually merged into the void of the mountain range. Then, gray gas that looked like chaotic spiritual chi began to emerge from the positions where the four divine beasts merged into the void. This is the chaotic spiritual chi that created the earth, fire, wind, and water. After seeing the gray gas emerging from the four directions of the mountain range, Thaling, who was in the space of the sea of consciousness, cried out in disbelief. After hearing Thaling's cry, Yuhauran frowned and asked, "Thaling, what is the chaotic spiritual chi?" Yuhauran, the origin of the chaos gives birth to all living things. The chaotic spiritual chi breaks down the innate spiritual chi and the acquired spiritual chi, which is the so-called spiritual chi of heaven and earth. Thaling, who forcibly calmed down, explained with a shocked look in his eyes. Chapter 2013. In the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located, Yuhauran wasn't the least bit interested in the origin and use of chaos energy. What he wanted to know was how to deal with the threat of chaos energy. Metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, the five elements reinforce and subdue each other. After taking a deep breath, the tower genie continued to explain with a grave expression. Earth, fire, wind, and water are formed by chaos energy. When they reinforce each other, they can transform into chaos energy. When they subdue each other, they can form the power of destruction. The power of destruction. The four divine beasts formed by the divine tribulation could transform into the power of destruction, ranked fourth among the tens of thousands of rules. Yuhauran's expression changed drastically. He immediately used a spatial law martial technique to teleport to the edge of the gray gas and threw a supreme Great Emperor defensive instrument into it. 1/10 of a second. In 1/10 of a second, the supreme Great Emperor defensive instrument was completely pulverized. Yuhauran immediately knew what the punishment of the eighth divine tribulation was. Returning to where he had been standing, Yuhauran searched through the memories of the Destiny Stone Steel for ways to deal with chaos energy and the power of destruction. At the same time, he asked for help from Thaling in his Sea of Consciousness. Yuhauran, under the power of destruction, everything is reduced to nothingness. Thaling, who had returned to his victor form, gave his advice with a grave expression. Therefore, if you want to resist the power of destruction, you either have to successfully comprehend and master the power of destruction in the shortest time possible, or avoid it through assimilation and fusion. Or you can use our 7 innate peerless treasures to resist and consume the power of destruction. After hearing the Tower Genie's suggestion, Yuhauran gave it some thought. In the end, he didn't choose to use the spacetime victor to resist and consume the power of destruction. Instead, he raised his right hand and used a spatial law martial technique. Using the spatial law martial technique, he drew a void fissure in front of the chaos energy, gradually guiding and reducing the amount of chaos energy. 100-meter deep space crack could only guide and contain a trace of chaos yuan qi. In the face of the chaotic yuan energy that was constantly gushing out from the edge of the mountain range, using spatial strangulation to deplete the chaotic yuan energy was no different from pouring a cup of water into a burning cart of firewood. In response, Yuhauran calmly gave up on using the laws of space. Afterwards, he took out 12 pitch-black divine sea-suppressing pearls from the victor. Then, he threw 3 sea-suppressing divine pearls into the chaos energy in the 4 directions of the mountain range. Just as the sea-suppressing divine pearl entered the chaotic yuan qi, it immediately formed an extremely strong suction force that began to crazily devour the surrounding chaotic yuan qi. In the void about 30,000 meters away from the northwest of the mountain range, the master of Buddhism from Spirited Mountain immediately revealed a look of surprise and greed when he saw the 12 sea-calming divine pearls that Yuhauran took out. There are a total of 24 sea-calming divine pearls. If I can gather all of them and merge them with the 2 chaotic seals that I obtained by accident, then I will be able to possess a top-notch innate defensive treasure that is not inferior to the spacetime victor. By then, even if I am faced with an immeasurable calamity that can destroy the world, I will be able to resist it easily. Although the amount of chaotic yuan energy that the 12 sea-calming divine pearls devoured could not be compared to the amount of chaotic yuan energy that was gushing out from the edge of the mountain range, at least it could delay the continuous gathering of chaotic yuan energy. The effect of the 12 sea-calming divine pearls devouring chaotic yuan energy made Yu Haoran immediately believe the records in the Destiny Stone Tablet's memory inheritance. Therefore, without any hesitation, he took out the bronze coffin and threw it directly into the chaotic yuan energy in the east of the mountain range. Then, like a whale swallowing water, the bronze coffin completely closed the gap between the amount of chaotic yuan energy that was gushing out and temporarily resolved the threat of the chaotic yuan energy that was constantly approaching. In the void about 50,000 meters east of the mountain range, the headless Xingtian Supreme, whose aura had fallen to the peak of 7th grade sovereign level, was floating in the void. After seeing the bronze coffin that Yu Haoran threw into the chaotic yuan energy, he immediately clenched his fists that he had condensed using a special secret technique, and a strong murderous aura surged out from his body. This was because he could never forget the harm that Yu Haoran had inflicted on him through scheming and plotting. Yu Haoran, we can't go on like this, because the God's tribulation lightning punishment can continue to increase the amount of chaotic yuan energy that is gushing out. Although the way that Yu Haoran used the sea-calming divine pearls and the bronze coffin to devour chaotic yuan energy greatly exceeded Thaling's expectations, based on the current situation, he was still very worried. Thaling, don't worry, I still have a way to eliminate the chaotic yuan energy. In contrast to Thaling's worry, Yu Haoran was full of confidence and appeared in front of the chaotic yuan energy in the west of the mountain range in a flash. Then, he activated the profound mysteries of the dual laws of life and death that he mainly cultivated and directly used the law of life and death martial technique. The moment the special energy that was shot out from his finger entered the chaotic yuan energy, it was immediately divided into two characteristics. The first characteristic was the energy that contained the profound mysteries of the law of life. Constantly wore down the chaotic yuan energy, and at the same time, it also wore down the amount of chaotic yuan energy. It was similar to the spatial law martial technique that was used to perform spatial strangulation. The second characteristic was the energy that contained the profound mysteries of the law of death. It began to devour and merge the chaotic yuan energy into the power of the law of destruction, and finally returned to his body as a brand new energy. Then, it became a means for him to further comprehend the profound mysteries of the dual laws of life and death. After seeing that the three methods recorded on the Destiny Stone Tablet to resist the power of the law of destruction were all effective, Yu Haoran secretly heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, a happy smile appeared on his face as he sat down cross-legged. Afterwards, he began to use the chaotic yuan energy to raise the level of the profound mysteries of the dual laws of life and death. He strove to reach the pinnacle as soon as possible and make preparations for the breakthrough of the law of life and death. Although the divine tribulation lightning could increase the amount of chaotic yuan energy, as the godly sea-suppressing pearl and the bronze coffin devoured the chaotic yuan energy, their power would constantly increase. Conversely, the amount and speed of the chaotic yuan energy devoured by the divine tribulation lightning would be completely offset. At the same time, as the level of the profound mysteries of the law of life and death increased, the speed and amount of chaotic yuan energy that Yu Haoran used to eliminate the chaotic yuan energy also increased by leaps and bounds. It was precisely in this stalemate that the amount of chaotic yuan energy surrounding the mountain range began to decrease. This caused the countless experts hidden around the mountain range and in the endless void to feel envy, jealousy, and resentment. At the same time, their eyes were filled with an intense sense of indignation. Minor accomplishment realm, great accomplishment realm. Chapter 2014. In the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located. Roar, roar, screech, hiss. Just as the remaining 1/3 of the chaotic energy disappeared, 4 deafening roars came from the north, south, east, and west edges of the mountain range. Along with the deafening roars, the blue dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise, who had merged into the void at the edge of the mountain range, reappeared with their huge bodies. However, due to the consumption of the chaotic energy, their peak 3rd grade sovereign cultivation had dropped to the peak 1st grade sovereign level. Star plucking. Although the strength of the 4 divine beasts formed by the God's Tribulation Thunder Punishment had been damaged, only the instincts of the God's Tribulation Thunder Punishment would know if they still had the means to attack together or if they could set up a more powerful formation. Therefore, Yuhauran didn't hesitate to take advantage of the situation and kill the Azure Dragon while it was down. He used a spatial law martial technique to teleport instantly and appeared in front of the Azure Dragon. Then, with the strength of a 3rd grade sovereign and the celestial trapping sword, he destroyed the huge head of the blue dragon divine beast. Ignoring the golden lightning that filled the sky after the huge head of the blue dragon divine beast was destroyed, the space law martial technique of teleportation allowed him to appear in front of the white tiger divine beast in the next moment. Star plucking. Using the same strength and the same means, he destroyed the huge head of the white tiger divine beast completely in the blink of an eye. Then, he continued to use the space law martial technique of teleportation and the celestial trapping sword to destroy the huge heads of the vermilion bird divine beast and the black tortoise divine beast. He returned to the clouds above the primeval forest and performed the complete version of the devouring great skill. He started to devour the golden lightning energy that filled the sky and turned it into the pure energy that he needed to level up. Get ready! Yuhauran's performance in the face of the 8th bolt of God Tribulation made the experts in the boundless void realize that even the most powerful 9th bolt of God Tribulation, Thunder, might not be able to do anything to Yuhauran. Yuhauran could even resist the power of the rule of destruction formed by the chaotic vital chi. Therefore, hundreds of Supremes and Half-Tribulation Immortal Realm experts mobilized the power of law and blood essence they comprehended, preparing to form a projection that would descend upon the Sky Xian continent. The interval between the 7th and 8th God Tribulation was 20 minutes. Then, according to the normal process of the God's Tribulation, the 9th Lightning Tribulation would take at least 30 to 40 minutes to form. Therefore, Yuhauran directly sat down cross-legged and took out a high-grade level 1 spiritual vein from the victor. Then, with the help of the divine vein's spiritual energy and the pure lightning energy, he started to increase his cultivation and strength. However, to Yuhauran and everyone else's surprise, the black clouds and golden lightning in the void above the mountain range only churned for less than 10 minutes before completely calming down. As a result, Yuhauran, who had only devoured less than 1/3 of the pure lightning energy and had just advanced to the early 6th grade martial god realm, felt rather depressed. He had no choice but to withdraw his god vein. He hurriedly stopped cultivating and stood up. Then, he prepared himself for the 9th and final lightning tribulation. However, when he saw the form of the 9th lightning tribulation, he couldn't help but be stunned. In fact, Yuhauran wasn't the only one who was dumbfounded. Even the experts hiding in the void around the mountain range, and the Supremes and Half-Tribulation Immortal experts in the endless void were shocked and confused. Because the 9th God Tribulation that descended from the dark clouds was a man who looked exactly the same as Yuhauran in terms of appearance, cultivation base, clothes, temperament, and aura. Thowling, what's going on? Yuhauran snapped out of his daze and asked with a puzzled look in his eyes as he pointed at the person who looked exactly like him walking out of the black clouds. It's my mirror image. Thowling was very worried when facing the chaotic essence condensed by the blue dragon, the white tiger, the vermilion bird, and the black tortoise. In that case, the pagoda spirit truly felt despair when facing the ninth god's tribulation, which was exactly the same as Yu Haoran's. Since the moment all living things were born, they would encounter endless challenges. There were challenges about whether they could be born safely, whether they could grow up smoothly, whether they could be challenged by geniuses of the same generation, or whether they could be killed at any time during their cultivation, etc. However, the biggest challenge they would encounter in their lives was themselves. Because only they knew themselves best and were most familiar with themselves, it was impossible for them to defeat themselves. After hearing Thalink's detailed description of his mirror image, Yu Haoran's face instantly turned solemn. Because in addition to the challenge of defeating himself, he was more worried that the ninth lightning tribulation, which contained all his means, would expose some of his trump cards and plans in advance. For example, he was about to succeed in comprehending the power of law of entrapment. For example, the Rui Bell that had already merged with the 6 chaos marks. For example, he had successfully created the life and death isolation technique with the help of the dual laws of life and death that was about to reach the pinnacle level. For example, he had secretly sealed and destroyed the Destiny Stone Tablet, secretly controlled and harmed the Destiny Calamity Spirit Rat, etc. Therefore, when facing the challenge of the ninth lightning tribulation, he had to try his best to avoid exposing his trump cards and plans as much as possible. Yu Haoran, if you don't want to, why don't you just enter the spacetime, Victor? I'll use the chaos marks to completely block the lightning tribulation from sensing you. Knowing that Yu Haoran would not be able to break through the power and techniques of his mirror image, the tower spirit could only choose to give up everything in front of him and use a technique that could only preserve his life to temporarily resolve the threat of the ninth god's tribulation. Thaling, do you think that my identity as Destiny's child will allow me to give up everything? Do you think that the Destiny Stone Tablet and the Destiny Calamity Spirit Rat will allow me to give up everything? Do you think that the Heavenly Tao, which needs the help of the destructive aura to completely perfect its own rules, will allow me to give up everything? Facing Thaling's suggestion to temporarily avoid the threat of the lightning tribulation, Yu Haoran continued to ask with a bitter smile. In a moment of panic, Thaling thought of this idea and did not consider Yu Haoran's special identity at all. Therefore, facing Yu Haoran's continuous questions, he suddenly did not know how to answer. Star picking, whether it was his identity as Destiny's child, his goal of reaching the peak of martial arts after his rebirth, or the promise to protect the safety of his family, lovers, and friends around him, he could not cowardly retreat. He could only brace himself and face the difficulties. Chapter 2015. In the mountain where the 100 Chi Gate was located. Star-plucking sword. Facing Yu Haoran, who attacked first, an identical celestial trapping sword appeared in the hand of the mirror image formed by the ninth god's tribulation thunder punishment. Then, he also performed the sword technique from the Destiny Stone Tablet's memory inheritance. Boom! As the two identical crescent sword chis collided with each other, there was a deafening roar in the void above the mountain. Along with the deafening roar, the crescent sword chis formed by the mirror image's star-plucking sword technique not only shattered the crescent sword chis but also continued to slash toward Yu Haoran without weakening. Break! Immediately, Yu Haoran mobilized all his strength and quickly slashed out a sharp sword chis with the celestial trapping sword in his hand. After shattering the crescent sword chis, Yu Haoran's face instantly turned solemn. With the same strength, the same sword technique, and the same celestial trapping sword, the power of the mirror image's sword technique was at least 30% stronger than his own sword technique. This meant that his opponent's use of his own strength and understanding of martial arts were far beyond his own. No wonder Thaling said that he couldn't deal with his mirror image at all. It turned out that his opponent had such powerful and terrifying means. However, through the probing battle just now, he vaguely discovered a weakness of his mirror image. As for whether the weakness he discovered was right or wrong, he still needed to verify it further. Thinking of this, Yuhauran quickly put away the celestial trapping sword in his hand and then directly activated the transformation of the wizard ancestor. Fist suppressing the world. Just as Yuhauran transformed into a 1,000,000-meter-tall giant and performed the fist technique inherited from the wizard ancestor, his mirror image quickly turned into a 1,000,000-meter-tall ancient wizard ancestor and performed the exact same fist technique inherited from the wizard ancestor. Boom! As the two giant mountains collided with each other, the mountain formed by Yuhauran's fist technique was instantly shattered by his opponent's mountain. At the same time, affected by the rebound of power, his huge body uncontrollably took 3 steps back. In the second probing attack, although Yuhauran was at an absolute disadvantage, he did not panic in the slightest. Instead, a hint of joy gradually appeared in his eyes. He quickly dispelled the transformation of Ancestral Sorcerer and took out a top-grade Emperor-level sword from his storage ring. Then, he used the sword technique taught by Heaven Punisher Devil Venerable. Soul Slayer! Soul Slayer! At the same time, the self-reflection that had also quickly ended the transformation of the ancestral wizard had a sword of the same level in its hand, and it immediately used the exact same sword technique. Pooh! Soul Slayer was a sword technique that specifically targeted the Sea of Consciousness. Yuhauran, who was at an absolute disadvantage, was ultimately injured by the Soul Slayer sword technique executed by his mirror image, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. He was injured. Seeing Yuhauran spit out blood after his soul was injured by the sword technique executed by his mirror image, whether it was the experts hidden in the void around the mountain range or the Supremes and half-tribulation immortal experts in the endless void, their faces were immediately filled with joy. After all, since the beginning of the gods' tribulation thunder punishment, whether it was the attack of the thunderstorm, the golden-armored thunder god that represented the punishment, or the 4 divine beasts that could transform chaotic vitality, Yuhauran had passed through all of them with ease. He had completely displayed his amazing talent and potential, as well as his accumulation that exceeded his own limit. This was also an important reason why the Supremes and half-tribulation immortal experts in the endless void had condensed their projections in advance. They believed that Yuhauran would be able to pass through the gods' tribulation thunder punishment easily. However, at the same time, a puzzled look appeared in everyone's eyes. Because of the injury to his soul, Yuhauran did not show any signs of panic. Instead, he revealed a happy smile on his face. After quickly taking the elixir used to heal his soul, Yuhauran put away his supreme-grade Emperor sword and executed the clear wind steps that he had practiced when he was a martial disciple. He quickly approached his mirror image that was a few thousand meters away. At the same time, his mirror image also dispersed the sword and executed the clear wind steps martial technique to meet Yuhauran. The clear wind steps was a low-grade yellow-rank martial technique that could increase one's speed by 2 to 3 times at most. Normally, only the ordinary disciples of small clans or rogue cultivators with no foundation could practice it. Therefore, even though his mirror image's use of his own strength and understanding of martial techniques far surpassed Yuhauran's, under the restriction of the clear wind steps, his speed was not much faster than Yuhauran's. Bang! 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 When the two sides started to fight, Yuhauran did not take out his celestial artifact to perform the inherited sword art, nor did he activate the inherited fist art with the power of the witch ancestor. He only used the body of a mid-level martial god to perform the most basic fist art, palm art, leg art, finger art, etc. Because of the importance he placed on his foundation in both his previous and current life, not only did he completely master the essence of the basic martial techniques, but he also mastered the use of the basic martial techniques to the point of perfection. Therefore, Yuhauran completely overturned the situation of being in a disadvantageous position during the intense battle. He was now evenly matched with his opponent, and sometimes, he could even attack his opponent's vital points. However, if he only used the basic martial techniques to fight, he would not be able to completely defeat and kill his mirror image. Therefore, after Yuhauran thoroughly familiarized himself with his mirror image's style and methods, he began to gradually increase the level of his martial technique. Of course, the prerequisite for increasing the level of his martial techniques was that he had to master the essence of each martial technique and ensure that he would not be at a disadvantage in the fight with his mirror image. Yuhauran's experiences in his previous life and this life, as well as the memories of the ancient sorcerer and the Destiny stone tablet, allowed him to master tens of thousands of martial skills of different grades. If he used all of them and grasped their essence, he probably wouldn't be able to end this battle in 8 to 10 years. Yuhauran had no choice but to increase his understanding of martial techniques through the fight with his mirror image. At the same time, he transmitted all the martial techniques and secret skills he had mastered to the sea of consciousness of Thaling and his two doppelgangers so that they could challenge suitable martial techniques for him to continue cultivating. After the analysis and discussion between the tower spirit and the two doppelgangers, and then based on his own characteristics, they finally chose 3 fist techniques, 3 palm techniques, 3 finger techniques, 3 sword techniques, and 5 secret techniques that could be used to increase his strength. Even though Thaling and his doppelgangers did not select many martial techniques, it still took Yuhauran 3 days and 3 nights to completely master the essence of these martial techniques. Chapter 2016. In the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located, after completely grasping the essence of the last secret technique that could increase one's strength, Yuhauran immediately stopped fighting with his mirror image and quickly retreated 100 meters. At the same time, his mirror image also automatically retreated 100 meters. Yuhauran, although you're not at a disadvantage against your mirror image through your cultivation of the essence of martial techniques and secret techniques, it's not a long-term solution if you don't have a way to defeat and kill your mirror image. Although Yuhauran's strength had been increasing by leaps and bounds during the fight with his mirror image, the result of the fight was that they were evenly matched at most. It was impossible for him to defeat and kill his mirror image. If that was the case, he wouldn't be able to successfully pass the God's Tribulation Lightning Punishment and enjoy the rewards after passing the God's Tribulation Lightning Punishment. He also wouldn't be able to use the plan that he had prepared beforehand to trap and kill those who were eyeing him covetously. Thaling, don't worry. I've already found a way to defeat and kill my mirror image. Yuhauran smiled confidently as he calmed the boiling divine power and soul power in his body due to the rapid increase in his strength. What's the way? Thaling immediately asked in surprise. It's very simple. Looking up at his mirror image 200 meters away, Yuhauran's eyes flashed with a trace of ruthlessness as he punched his own chest violently. Pfft! His chest and organs were instantly severely injured, and he directly spat out a mouthful of blood. At the same time, his mirror image also punched his own chest violently. Due to the fact that his attack was even more ferocious, it caused him to spit out 2 bolts of lightning that were mixed with purple light. Self-harm. Seeing Yuhauran and his mirror image violently punch their own chests and spit out blood from different injuries, Thaling's eyes immediately revealed a trace of understanding. It's still not enough. Yuhauran shook his head and reminded him with a serious expression. Although the advantage in the use of strength made the self-harm mirror image more severely injured, it wasn't enough to completely destroy the mirror image. Could it be suicide? Yuhauran shook his head as a reminder, causing Thaling to immediately think of a deeper injury. His expression changed as he reprimanded Yuhauran. Yuhauran, are you crazy? Even if you destroy your mirror image in the end, your soul will still be destroyed. What's the point of sacrificing yourself like this? Thaling, I'm not crazy. In order to destroy the mirror image, he needed the Thaling to bring the spacetime victor and the wishful bell out of the knowledge sea. Therefore, Yuhauran knew that he could not hide his plan to deal with the mirror image. Because suicide is not the same as courting death, and the final result is not the destruction of one's soul. In fact, when facing the eighth lightning tribulation of the gods' tribulation, which was the chaotic Yuan Qi transformed by the four divine beasts blue dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise, he used the mysteries of the laws of life and death to eliminate and fuse the power of the laws of destruction to successfully create a law-martial technique of life and death isolation. The law-martial technique of life and death isolation completely separated the life and death in a living being's body. Then, by controlling the life and death of the other party, it determined the other party's life and death. However, if he used the law-martial technique of life and death isolation on himself, using the law-martial technique to control the death and create the illusion of his complete death, he should be able to completely destroy the mirror image of himself. At that time, he could use the separated life force to complete the resurrection plan. Although Yuhauran's plan was very risky, with his secret help, there shouldn't be any fatal danger. However, Thaling was worried that the omnipotent god's tribulation might copy the law-martial technique of life and death isolation and then use the same method to give the mirror image a chance to be reborn. Time and speed. Yuhauran had already thought of Thaling's worries before he decided to use the law-martial technique of life and death isolation, so he confidently reminded Thaling. Thaling, no matter how heaven-defying the god's tribulation is, it probably can't copy the Destiny Steel and the Destiny Calamity Spirit Rat. Yuhauran, could it be that you want to use the Destiny Calamity Spirit Rat's control of the Aura of Destiny to speed up the time and speed of your rebirth? Thaling immediately asked in surprise when he heard Yuhauran's question. Although Yuhauran's name wasn't on the Destiny Steel, so the Destiny Calamity Spirit Rat couldn't intercept his life imprint. His identity as the child of Destiny allowed him to share the law of Destiny power contained within the Destiny Steel. If the Destiny Calamity Spirit Rat used the law of Destiny power to speed up the process of rebirth, then Yuhauran would be able to recover his peak strength and deal with his mirror image in advance. In that case, his chances of killing his mirror image would be much higher. That's right. While nodding to confirm Thaling's conjecture, Yuhauran raised his head to look at his motionless mirror image and continued to add with a smile. Moreover, the yang side of the yin-yang life and death mirror also has the ability to speed up the process of rebirth, so using suicide to destroy your mirror image is definitely the most effective method. Okay, I agree with your plan. Seeing that Yuhauran's considerations were far more comprehensive than he had imagined, Thaling, who had no other reason to respond, could only nod in agreement. Then, he put the Rui bell that had fused with Yuhauran's body and the storage ring on his finger into the spacetime victor, then took the real victor and left his knowledge sea. Life and death isolation. The moment Thaling left his knowledge sea, Yuhauran directly used the martial technique of the dual laws of life and death on his body. Whether it was the life essence that determined one's vitality or the death chi that determined one's death, they were inextricably linked to the physical body and the divine soul. The process of being forcibly separated was like using a knife to cut the flesh bit by bit and extract the soul bit by bit. The pain was simply indescribable. Just as Yuhauran used the law of life and death separation on himself, his mirror image immediately used the same law of life and death on himself. However, compared to Yuhauran's extremely ferocious expression due to the extreme pain, his mirror image's expression was as calm as water, as if he did not feel anything. This also made Yuhauran feel quite indignant and depressed. When Yuhauran was left with less than 1/10,000th of his life essence, and barely managed to maintain his body that was already occupied by the death aura, he glanced at the thousands of martial gods and half-tribulation supremes hidden around the mountain range. Then, He raised his head to look at the endless void and sneered. Explode. Chapter 2017. In the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located. What's going on? Seeing Yu Haoran suddenly self-destruct his physical body and divine soul for no reason, the experts in the endless void, who were not disturbed at all, were puzzled. After all, after 3 days and 3 nights of continuous fighting, not only was Yu Haoran not at a disadvantage against his mirror image, but his strength had also improved by leaps and bounds. Originally, his cultivation was at the mid-6th grade martial god level, and he only had the strength of an early 3rd grade sovereign. Now, he was still at the mid-6th grade martial god level, but he already had the strength of a peak 3rd grade sovereign. Therefore, under such circumstances, he had no reason or motive to seek his own death. However, when they saw that his mirror image had also self-destructed, and that Yu Haoran's lover, family, and friends did not show any signs of panic, they immediately guessed that Yu Haoran was not seeking his own death by self-destructing his physical body and divine soul. He must have a way to revive himself. And the truth was just as the experts in the endless void had guessed. The moment his mirror image self-destructed, a green seed exuding exuberant vitality quickly appeared at the position where Yu Haoran had self-destructed his physical body and divine soul. Then, the green seed began to germinate and grow rapidly. At the same time, an identical seed also appeared at the position where his mirror image had self-destructed his physical body, and it also sprouted and grew at the same time. Calamity Spirit Rat, lend me a hand. Seeing that his mirror image's speed of revival was not inferior to his own, Yu Haoran, who had already grown into a small sapling, immediately instructed the Calamity Spirit Rat, who had fused with his life essence. Life fusion. After hearing Yu Haoran's instructions, the Calamity Spirit Rat, who had long been prepared, immediately extracted the power of the rules of destiny from the Destiny Stone tablet, and then forcibly fused it with the growing sapling. After fusing with the power of the rules of destiny, the sapling, whose physical body was growing at a discernible speed, grew rapidly and strengthened like a rocket. It also stretched out 4 branches in advance before the mirror image. Brother Hao, lend me a hand. Although Yu Haoran's resurrection speed had far surpassed his self-image thanks to the Life Calamity Spirit Rat's help, he decided to continue using the yin-yang life and death realm to increase his resurrection speed. Yin-yang mirror of life and death are forever separated. After hearing Yu Haoran's instructions, the first clone did not immediately leave the spacetime victor, nor did he immediately take out the yin-yang life and death mirror. Instead, he slowly opened his right eye. Right after that, Yu Inzhong immediately spat out a milky white energy that exuded a rich and exuberant vitality. It directly penetrated the spatial barrier of the spacetime victor, and then quickly merged into the growing tree. Yu Haoran, who had put all his energy into his rebirth, did not notice any abnormalities. However, as the spirit of the spacetime victor, Faling immediately noticed that something was wrong with the first doppelganger. First of all, the first doppelganger, who was proficient in Pill Dao, did not have the cultivation and strength to directly penetrate the spatial barrier of the spacetime victor. Secondly, the yin-yang life and death mirror, which had been refined under special circumstances, was at most at the peak of innate spirit treasures. It also did not have the ability to directly penetrate the spatial barrier of the spacetime domain. Finally, the quantity and quality of the life essence fused into the tree far exceeded that of Yu Haoran when he activated the yang mirror of the yin-yang life and death mirror with all his strength. However, Yu Haoran was at a critical juncture of life and death. Even if Faling had suspicions in his heart, he did not have the energy to investigate the cause of his suspicions for the time being. With the help of the Life Calamity Spirit Rat and the first clone, Yu Haoran completed the resurrection process in the blink of an eye. And the process of his self-image resurrection was only half completed. Star plucking. Without the slightest hesitation, the celestial trapping sword quickly appeared in his hand. He directly executed the sword technique inherited from the Destiny Stone Tablet's memory and slashed at the 4 branches that his self-image had just extended. By the time the Crescent Moon sword aura condensed from the sword technique successfully slashed the 2 branches extended by his self-image, the Space Rule Martial technique of teleportation allowed Yu Haoran to appear in front of the big tree at the same time. He quickly removed the seal on his finger imprint and threw Du Fengyuan's projection directly toward the big tree. Immediately after, the Space Rule Martial technique of teleportation allowed him to quickly return to his original position and directly detonate the projection that was maintained at the peak of the 7th grade Supreme Martial Artist level. Boom! Accompanied by the sound of an explosion that was enough to cause the entire Tianxian continent to tremble violently, Du Fengyuan's projection directly blasted the big tree condensed by his self-image into countless powder and dust. Although Du Fengyuan's projection had successfully destroyed his self-image, Yu Haoran did not relax at all. He took out the Yuan Killer Sword and was ready to attack the self-image that could be resurrected at any time. Fortunately, as the black clouds in the void above the mountain range began to churn again, the golden lightning in the clouds began to boil again. Yu Haoran finally heaved a long sigh of relief. This meant that he had safely passed the last thunder punishment of the gods' tribulation thunder punishment. Next, it was time to enjoy the fruits of victory. Attack! Seeing that Yu Haoran could safely pass through his self-image that had a slim chance of survival, they also thought of the vicious means he had used to deal with his self-image. As the supreme martial artists and half-tribulation immortal experts in the endless void felt a chill, they immediately used their powerful strength to assist the projection that had been condensed in advance and rushed toward the Tianxian continent. At the same time, the thousands of martial gods, half-tribulation supreme martial artists, and supreme martial artists who had been forced out by the shock wave of the destructive power also rushed toward the mountain range where Yu Haoran was. Senior Shuesu, Senior Long-Armed Ape, Senior Brother Lu, Sister, get ready to attack. In the endless void, at least 100 supreme martial artists and half-tribulation immortal experts were speeding toward the Tianxian continent. Seeing that there were at least 1,000 martial gods, half-tribulation supreme martial artists, and supreme martial artists who were speeding toward the mountain range where he was, Yu Haoran hurriedly used his divine thought to inform the blood void beast and the others who were hiding in the mountain range to use the means they had prepared in advance to defend against the strong enemies. As for himself, he directly sat cross-legged in the void and waited for the reward of the gods' tribulation thunder punishment. Kill! Without any obstacles, more than 1,000 martial gods, half-tribulation supreme martial artists, and supreme martial artists rushed to the edge of the mountain range first. However, just as they were about to rush into the mountain range with murderous intent to kill Yu Haoran, who was waiting for the reward of the gods' tribulation thunder punishment, a thick white fog suddenly appeared in the mountain range. Everyone, be careful. The white fog has the effect of restricting divine thought. In the situation where their eyes were completely useless, countless experts who rushed into the mountain range instinctively used their divine thought to check. Chapter 2018. In the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located. Just as the peak 3rd grade supreme martial artist finished his warning, countless miserable cries could be heard from the mountain range that was shrouded in white fog. The incomparably miserable howls seemed to play the music of death. The mountain range was filled with the sound of weapons colliding, the sound of laws and rules colliding, the sound of people begging for mercy, and the sound of people cursing when they were injured by sneak attacks. However, most of the cries in the mountain range were the cries of death. Yu Haoran was not worried about the martial gods, half-tribulation supreme martial artists, and the Xianyuan sword's weapon spirit, who had recovered to the peak of the 9th grade martial artist realm, as well as the Xianyuan sword's weapon spirit, who had recovered to the peak of the 7th grade martial artist realm, Yu Haoran was not worried about the martial gods, half-tribulation supreme martial artists, and supreme martial artists. At this moment, he raised his head and looked at the black clouds that were still rolling in the void of the mountain range. His eyes were filled with confusion. According to the normal process of the God Tribulation Thunder Punishment, the reward of the God Tribulation Thunder Punishment would arrive within 3 to 5 minutes after the last God Tribulation Thunder Punishment disappeared. However, it had been more than 5 minutes since the last God Tribulation Thunder Punishment's self-image was destroyed. Not only did the reward of the God Tribulation Thunder Punishment not arrive, but it seemed like a new God Tribulation Thunder Punishment was being born from the black clouds. Recalling the 10th God Tribulation Thunder Punishment that the long-armed ape faced when he was trying to break through to the divine beast realm, Yu Haoran had a very strong feeling in his heart. He felt that not only would he face the 10th God Tribulation Thunder Punishment like the long-armed ape, but the power of the 10th God Tribulation Thunder Punishment would be far beyond his imagination. His gaze shifted from the black clouds in the void to the projections of the experts that were about to descend on the Tianxian continent. A hint of hesitation flashed in his eyes. If the feeling in his heart was right, he would face the 10th God Tribulation Thunder Punishment. Then, he could make use of the threat of the 10th God Tribulation Thunder Punishment to completely kill all the projections of the Supremes and half-tribulation Immortal Realm experts, and win himself some time to cultivate in peace. However, if the projections of the Supremes and half-tribulation Immortal Realm experts were to participate in the 10th Lightning Tribulation, the Supremes and half-tribulation Immortal Realm experts would be greatly affected. Then, according to the characteristics of the God's Tribulation Lightning, the power of the 10th God's Tribulation Lightning would probably rise to an unimaginably terrifying level. It was very likely that he would face the fatal risk of falling. If you don't want your prince's mansion and 100 Qi Gate to be destroyed, then immediately stop the formation in the mountains and let us leave this place immediately. Just as Yu Haoran was hesitating whether he should use the 10th Lightning Tribulation to completely annihilate the projections of those Supremes and half-tribulation immortals, a threatening voice suddenly sounded from the mountain range shrouded in white mist. His divine telekinesis quickly scanned the mountain range that was shrouded in white mist. He realized that the person who had threatened him was from the Shangguan clan, one of the 5 great hidden clans. At the same time, there were at least 4 projections of the peak 9th grade Supremes in the endless void that were from the Shangguan clan. Yu Haoran, if you don't want to see your friends and family members being killed by 1,000 cuts, and if you don't want to see your lover being humiliated to death, then obediently withdraw the formation in the mountains. Just as the Supremes from the Shangguan clan finished their threat, a second threatening voice sounded from the mountain range. His divine telekinesis also quickly scanned the white mist in the mountains. He realized that the second person who had threatened him was from the Flowing Cloud sect, one of the 7 great sects. At the same time, there were 2 projections of the peak 9th grade Supremes in the endless void that were from the Flowing Cloud sect. Yu Haoran, if you don't want to see your family destroyed, you'd better immediately. Yu Haoran, if you don't want to see the 100 Qi Gate. Yu Haoran, if, perhaps because of Yu Haoran's silence, more and more experts in the mountains mistakenly thought that he was afraid that his lover, family, and friends would be hurt, and would choose to compromise in the end. Thus, they began to threaten him one after another. Unfortunately, because the white mist blocked the divine telekinesis, they did not see Yu Haoran's gradually darkening face. Otherwise, they would never have made such suicidal threat. You all deserve to die. Yu Haoran suddenly stood up. His gaze shifted from the white mist in the mountains to the projections of the 100 Supremes that were about to descend on the Tianxian continent. He then gritted his teeth and roared in a low voice. Then, the celestial trapping sword and the Yuantu sword instantly appeared in his hands. Together with the sword technique inherited from the Destiny Stone Tablet, He directly slashed at the experts of the Flowing Cloud sect who dared to threaten him with his lover, family, and friends. Damn you, Howren, it seems like you've really gone mad. The deaths of 3 martial gods and 2 half-tribulation supremes, as well as the unimaginable injuries of the peak first-grade supremes, caused a peak second-grade supremes of the Flowing Cloud sect to shout at the top of his lungs. At the same time, his eyes were filled with disbelief and fear. My lover, my family, and my friends, from now on, use your most ruthless means, your strongest strength, and your harshest heart. Completely slaughter these bastards who want to humiliate you. After successfully killing the experts of the Flowing Cloud sect, Howren did not continue to attack. Instead, he used his divine telekinesis to wrap around his voice, and gave the order and encouragement to the Blood Void Beast and the others to kill. 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 As long-armed ape Wu Jingjun and Palace, who had the heaviest killing intent, responded with murderous intent, the entire mountain range was filled with even more miserable howls. There was no reason for the massacre in the mountain range. Howren's gaze turned to the projections of the experts who had already arrived in the void of the Tianxian continent and were also rushing over with murderous intent. Holding the celestial trapping sword tightly in his right hand and the Yuantu sword in his left hand, Howren took a deep breath and directly rushed into the void of the mountain range. You're courting death. Seeing that Howren, whose cultivation was temporarily stuck at the middle 6th grade martial god realm, had not accepted the reward of the god's tribulation thunder punishment, he actually dared to take the initiative to attack the projections of the peak 9th grade supremes and half-tribulation immortal realm experts. The peak 9th grade supremes of the Flowing Cloud sect sneered with disdain. The lower supreme grade sword that instantly appeared in his hand immediately slashed out a terrifying sword chi like a star. In response, Howren also sneered with disdain. The space rules of teleportation martial technique allowed him to quickly appear in front of the dark clouds. Then, without any hesitation, he rushed into the dark clouds. Chapter 2019. In the void above the mountain where the 100 Chi Gate was located, seeing Howren charging directly into the dark clouds, a 9th grade sovereign divine beast from the ancient demon clan mocked him with a look of disdain. Then, he immediately opened his big mouth and spat out a ball of flame. The ball of flame was pure white in color and was burning. Boom! After losing its target, the star sword chi from the peak of grade 9 supreme from the Flowing Clouds sect slashed at the mountain shrouded in white fog. With a deafening rumble, the soul-obliterating god-slaying formation and 5 elemental dust formation that the clone had set up beforehand were destroyed. However, the number of arrays set up by Thaling and his second doppelganger in half a month reached an astonishing 36. The loss of 2 divine-level arrays did not affect the overall layout of the mountain. Crackle! 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 Just as the boom caused by the star sword chi disappeared, the white flame spat out by the divine beast of the ancient era's demon clan reached the dark clouds and started to burn them in a large area. As the dark clouds were being burned by the white flame, the projections of the experts in the void gradually saw the situation inside the dark cloud. There was neither the boiling golden lightning nor the thunder pool that gave birth to the god's tribulation thunder. There was only a meatball the size of a mountain in the dark clouds. At the same time, Howren was floating in front of the meatball with a complicated look in his eyes. Come on! Come on! Keep attacking me! Feeling the gazes of the people behind him, Howren quickly turned around and looked at the divine beast of the ancient era's demon clan and the experts of the Flowing Clouds sect who had attacked him just now. Then, he raised the celestial trapping sword in his hand and pointed it at the projections of the Supremes and half-tribulation immortal realm expert. Damn you, brat! Damn you, bastard! Arrogant bastard! In the face of Howren's reckless provocation, the projections of close to 99th grade supreme martial artists were affected by their anger and immediately used their strongest move. There were less than 30 half-tribulation, immortal realm experts left. They frowned and looked at the meatball in confusion. Just as the first fist attack was about to reach him, Yuhauran instantly appeared behind his physical body using the spatial coordinates he had set up in advance. Immediately after, fist techniques, sword chi, saber chi, and rule-bending martial techniques all landed precisely on the meatball. The imagined deafening roar didn't sound, nor did the imagined scene of the meatball being torn apart. All the strongest moves of the 9th grade supreme martial artists were ultimately absorbed, devoured, and digested by the seemingly ordinary meatball. What the hell is this thing? Even an expert at the peak of the immortal realm, who had undergone 2 tribulations, couldn't withstand the joint attack of nearly 90 experts at the peak of the 9th grade sovereign realm. Therefore, when they saw that the meatball was completely unharmed, and when they saw that the meatball had swallowed all of the attacks, the same thought appeared in everyone's mind at the same time. Just when everyone was wondering about the origin of the meatball, Supreme Blue Dragon, who was the strongest among them, vaguely saw a crack gradually appearing on the inside of the meatball. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. At the same time, he said to Supreme White Tiger, Supreme Vermilion Bird, and Supreme Black Tortoise, "Second brother, third sister, fourth brother, return to the boundless void immediately." Supreme Blue Dragon's sudden change of expression made the rest of the half-tribulation immortal realm experts realize something. They also turned around and dashed toward the boundless void. But at this moment a crack quickly appeared on the meatball, and a deep purple lightning shot out from the crack. The dark purple thunderbolt appeared in front of the half-tribulation immortal realm experts who were planning to return to the boundless void at an unimaginable speed. Then, it quickly merged into the void. Bang bang bang! Due to the sudden disappearance of the dark purple thunderbolt, the half-tribulation immortal realm experts who were trying their best to return to the boundless void didn't even slow down. Finally, they rushed to the void where the dark purple thunderbolt had disappeared. Soon after, sounds of collisions rang out continuously. Regardless of whether it was the strongest Azure Dragon Sovereign or the fastest Gale Sovereign, all of them were knocked back by the void that had suddenly materialized. At the same time, the cracked meatball finally revealed its true appearance. This is the punishment divine I presented by the rules of Heaven Tao. Looking at the pitch-black eyeball peeking out from the crack of the meatball, as well as its cold and emotionless gaze, the peak 9th grade supreme martial artists present instantly turned as pale as a sheet of paper and cried out the true origin of the meatball. "Come on! Keep it up! Why don't you continue to attack me?" Yuhauran, who had already guessed the true origin of the meatball, stood behind one eye and waved the celestial trapping sword and the Yuan massacre sword. He continued to provoke the Supremes and half-tribulation immortal realm experts present with an infuriating attitude. However, they all ignored Yuhauran's provocation and looked at One Eye with gloomy faces. Then, they began to discuss a countermeasure with their divine consciousness. Seeing that no one cared about his provocation, Yuhauran, who felt rather bored, directly used the space law of teleportation to appear above the mountain range. Then, he threw the celestial trapping sword into the white mist in the west of the mountain range and charged into the mountain range with the Yuan massacre sword. According to the rules of the God Tribulation Lightning Tribulation, if someone interfered with the God Tribulation Lightning Tribulation, the God Tribulation Lightning 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 at the same time, with the projections of nearly 30 half-tribulation immortal realm experts and nearly 90 peak 9th grade supremes, the divine eyes that were temporarily condensed by the rules of Heaven Way would not be able to completely destroy them in a short time. Therefore, Yuhauran wanted to take this opportunity to completely annihilate the enemies in the mountain range. Then, he could activate all the measures that he had set up in the mountain range in advance to deal with the threat of the divine eyes condensed by the rules of Heaven Way. At the same time, Thaling and his second doppelganger in the Sea of Consciousness also took action to assist. Originally, with the Blood Void Beast at the peak 9th grade Supremes and the Xianyuan Sword at the peak 7th grade Supremes, together with a large number of Divine level and Supreme level formations set up in advance, it was only a matter of time before they completely annihilated the thousands of experts in the mountain range. Now, with the addition of Thaling, who was at the peak 9th grade Supremes, his second doppelganger, who could fully utilize the power of all the formations, and Yuhauran, who was at the peak 3rd grade Supremes, the speed of the massacre in the mountain range increased by at least 5 to 6 times. Chapter 2020. In the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located, the emotionless eye quickly scanned the projections of the Supremes and half-tribulation immortal experts in the endless void. Then, it looked at the mountain range shrouded in white mist and finally stopped at Yuhauran, who was crazily slaughtering his opponents. When Yuhauran sensed the gaze of the heavenly Tao's single eye, his countenance instantly turned grim. At the same time, he quickly stopped his frenzied killing of his opponent. He knew that the rule of heaven was expressing its dissatisfaction with his contempt and unauthorized actions. After scanning the mountain range with his divine thought, he found that there were less than 100 experts left. With the strength of the Blood Void Beast and the others, they could easily finish them off in a few minutes. Therefore, after quickly putting away the Yuan Killer Sword in his hand, Yuhauran performed the space law martial technique of teleportation and appeared 999 meters away from the eye. But at this moment, the eye formed by the laws of the heavenly Tao shot out a bolt of purple lightning the thickness of a finger. Facing the slow dark purple thunderbolt, Yuhauran did not use the space law martial technique to dodge it, nor did he activate the strength of the ancestral sorcerer's body and the Rui Bell to defend himself. Instead, he let the dark purple thunderbolt hit him. Boom! With a deafening roar, Yuhauran, who was hit by the dark purple thunderbolt, smashed into the mountain range like a meteor. Dong! With the sound of a heavy object falling, Yuhauran, who was like a meteor, smashed through a mountain that was more than 3,000 meters high. Seeing the single eye condensed from the heavenly Tao law, it unexpectedly took the initiative to attack Yuhauran. Furthermore, Yuhauran, who had transcended the tribulation, didn't dodge or block. Instead, he took the attack of the dark purple lightning head-on. Nearly 90 peak-level 9th grade supreme martial artists present all had puzzled looks in their eyes. Around 30 half-tribulation, immortal realm experts looked gloomy. Their eyes showed that they were struggling. Pu. After spitting out 3 mouthfuls of fresh blood, Yuhauran endured the heavy injuries on his body and returned to the spot where he was struck by the deep purple lightning with a pale face. Although the eye condensed from the heavenly Tao law did not show any emotion, everyone present could sense that it was looking at Yuhauran with a satisfied expression. Yuhauran, who had also noticed the change in One-Eye's gaze, secretly let out a sigh of relief. He immediately took out several first-stage third-rank healing pills from Victor. After swallowing it, he sat cross-legged in the void. Then, with the help of the divine pill, he tried his best to recover the damage to his body and soul caused by the dark purple lightning. Yuhauran, what happened just now? The eye formed by the heavenly Tao suddenly changed the rules of the tribulation and attacked Yuhauran first, which made Thaling feel very strange. In the face of the dark purple lightning, which was only at the peak of 3rd grade Supremes, Yuhauran did not block it immediately, nor did he use the space rules of martial techniques to dodge it. This made him even more puzzled. Now, he only dared to swallow the healing pill after seeing the change in One-Eye's gaze. Yuhauran's strange actions made Thaling unable to bear the doubts in his heart. He could not help but ask, risking being discovered by the heavenly Tao. Thaling, something must have happened during the advancement of the heavenly Tao. It actually produced a trace of consciousness that shouldn't exist. Yu Haoran raised his head and glanced at the peak supreme being and half-tribulation, immortal expert's projections. His expression was as calm as water as he explained. That's impossible. After hearing Yu Haoran's explanation, Thaling's first reaction was disbelief. This was because the heavenly Tao was a unique existence formed by thousands of laws and rules. It would not be affected by the will of all living things, nor would it produce the 7 emotions and 6 desires that all living things had. It was like a high and mighty emperor, looking down on all living things in the world whose life and death were under his control. It would coldly and mercilessly deal with any living thing that dared to break the rules set by it. Moreover, even in the ancient times when martial arts were at its peak, the heavenly Tao was not affected by all living things in the world at all, thus producing a consciousness that shouldn't exist. Understanding Thaling's disbelief, Yu Haoran, who had closed his eyes again, continued to ask. Thaling, since the beginning of the world, has there ever been any living thing that would encounter the chaotic vital energy and self-image during the God's tribulation thunder punishment? Would it encounter the heavenly Tao's rules that condense the God's tribulation thunder punishment? No. Thaling didn't even need to think about it and directly shook his head. Pagoda spirit, in the primordial age, the Middle Age, and the recent age, there would always be children of destiny who carried the aura of destiny before the final great destruction. Then, did they encounter the same treatment as me? No. Thaling continued to shake his head. Thaling had not only seen the 3 children of destiny in the ancient times, the Middle Ages, and the Late Ages with his own eyes, but he had also secretly investigated their detailed information and was very clear about their growth experiences. Not to mention the descent of the heavenly Tao, they had never even seen the golden-armored thunder god that the long-armed ape encountered during his tribulation. Then, why are we treated differently even though we are all children of destiny? Why? Thaling hurriedly asked. Considering the life calamity spirit rat in his heart space, Yu Haoran didn't directly answer Thaling's question. Instead, he used the method of divine thought to explain. That's because I secretly did something that went against the will of the heavenly Tao, which caused it to be extremely dissatisfied and angry. That's why it changed the form and power of the God's tribulation thunder punishment and even taught me a lesson in the end. Yu Haoran, what kind of heaven-defying actions did you do that went against the will of the heavenly Tao? Only by knowing what Yu Haoran had done in secret could they be sure that it wasn't because of the dissatisfaction of the heavenly Tao, which caused it to change the form and power of the God's tribulation thunder punishment. Only by knowing whether the heavenly Tao had developed strong emotions of dissatisfaction and anger could they be sure that it didn't have a consciousness that shouldn't exist. Thaling, I once secretly used the power of the law of trapping fruit to weaken the life calamity spirit rat's control over the destiny stone tablet. After hesitating for a while, Yu Haoran finally decided to reveal the heaven-defying actions he had been secretly doing. Yu Haoran, why did you do that? Chapter 2021. In the mountain range where the 100 Qi Gate was located. In order to get rid of the shackles of fate, in order to seize the opportunity in the immeasurable calamity, and in order to live forever. Yu Haoran raised his head to look at the heavenly Tao precepts that still had not taken action to punish the experts in the endless void. There was a hint of unwillingness, anger, resentment, helplessness, and a hint of ambition that was difficult to suppress in his voice. Sigh. After hearing Yu Haoran's explanation, Thaling couldn't help but sigh, not knowing what to say next. His identity as the Chosen One had brought him the protection of the heavenly Tao and endless luck, allowing him to obtain many heaven-defying opportunities, allowing him to turn misfortune into blessings when he encountered danger many times. Although the Destiny Stone Tablet and the Destiny Calamity Spirit Rat had given him the means to control the fate of all living things, the rule that there were gains and losses had also caused him to lose some important things. For example, he couldn't reach the immortal realm, which was the peak of martial arts. For example, he clearly had the means to distribute the opportunity of the immeasurable calamity, but he couldn't give it all to himself. For example, he couldn't predict life and death after the immeasurable calamity. After all, the children of destiny of the ancient, middle, and recent ages had all disappeared for no reason the moment the heavenly tribulation ended. No one knew whether they were dead or alive. Heavenly Tao, as punishment for breaking the rules you set, I, the White Tiger, am willing to destroy the arms of my projection. Are you satisfied? As someone who understood the Heavenly Tao better, Supreme Blue Dragon had already guessed that the plan that the four great guardian families had secretly prepared for countless years had begun to work from the one-eyed man's initiative to break the rules of the gods' tribulation lightning punishment and take the initiative to punish Yu Haoran. However, considering that the Heavenly Tao was a unique existence condensed from thousands of laws and rules, it was difficult for it to be affected by the will of all living things. He was also worried that his speculation would be wrong. Therefore, in order to be safe, he secretly gave Supreme White Tiger a look, asking him to test the Heavenly Tao at the risk of losing his projection. Hearing that Supreme White Tiger was willing to destroy the arms of his projection as punishment for breaking the rules, a hint of contemplation flashed through the one-eyed man's emotionless eyes. However, apart from Supreme Blue Dragon, who was deliberately paying attention to the one-eyed man, no one else present noticed the abnormality of the Heavenly Tao's one-eyed man. The contemplation time was short, less than 1/5 of a second, when the Heavenly Tao's one-eyed man suddenly shot a dark purple lightning that went straight for Supreme White Tiger. Boom. Boom 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 boom. To be punished. Second brother, don't regenerate your lost limbs for now. Turn around and return to the endless void. Seeing that the White Tiger, whose limbs had been chopped off, intended to use its rule power and blood to regrow its legs and claws, Blue Dragon hurriedly reminded it. The White Tiger turned its head and glanced at Autarch Blue Dragon, then turned around and headed straight for the void sealed by the Heavenly Tao using the laws of lightning. Without encountering any obstacles, the White Tiger's sovereign successfully passed through the sealed void, and returned to the endless void safe and sound. Blue Dragon Prime, who had basically understood the true state of the heavenly axiom, forcibly suppressed the joy that emerged in his heart. He immediately used his divine sense to inform Black Tortoise Prime to use the method of severing his own limbs to continue to test the one-eyed man's reaction. By the time Black Tortoise Prime had successfully returned to the endless void, Blue Dragon Prime, who had completely understood the true state of the heavenly axiom, used his divine sense to inform Vermilion Bird Prime to destroy its claws and wings. At the same time, he also destroyed his 9 claws without hesitation. Black Tortoise Prime, Vermilion Bird Prime, and Blue Dragon Prime had successfully returned to the endless void by severing their own limbs. This made the remaining 20 over half-tribulation Immortal Realm experts and nearly 90 peak 9th grade Supremes immediately understand the attitude of the heavenly axiom. Therefore, they also used the method of severing their own limbs to successfully return to the endless void with their projections intact. When the projection of the last peak 9th grade Supremes successfully returned to the endless void, the heavenly axiom condensed the one-eyed man's gaze and directly looked at Yu Haoran, who was recuperating with the help of the God Pill. He immediately stopped recuperating and stood up to look straight at the emotionless one-eyed man. Under Yu Haoran's calm expression, he suppressed the joy of Blue Dragon Prime. This was because he had basically confirmed the most realistic state of the heavenly axiom through the one-eyed man's punishment of those half-tribulation Immortal Realm experts and peak 9th grade Supremes. They looked at each other for less than 3 seconds before the emotionless one-eyed man slowly closed his eyes. But immediately after, the one-eyed man reopened his one-eyed man's eye, and 9 streaks of dark purple lightning of different thicknesses and powers shot out in succession. Facing the 9 dark purple thunderbolts, which were at least at the peak of first-grade Supreme Martial Artist, and at most at the peak of 9th-grade Supreme Martial Artist, Yuhauran's eyes flashed with a hint of determination. He slowly closed his eyes and did not resist or dodge, allowing the 9 dark purple thunderbolts to strike his body. Boom! The first streak of dark purple lightning that was only at the peak of first-grade Supremes did not cause much damage to Yuhauran. Boom! The second streak of dark purple lightning that was raised to the peak of second-grade Supremes did not cause much damage to Yuhauran, but he was forcefully struck 10 meters down. Boom! The third streak of dark purple lightning that was raised to the peak of third-grade Supremes not only forcefully struck Yuhauran down 100 meters, but also caused minor injuries to his internal organs, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood uncontrollably. Boom! The fourth streak of dark purple lightning that was raised to the peak of 4th-grade Supremes not only forcefully struck Yuhauran down 1,000 meters, but also caused several wounds to appear on his tough body. Drops of golden blood dripped from the wounds. Don't be rash. Seeing that Yuhauran did not resist or dodge the attack of the dark purple lightning and was already severely injured, Qin Lingfei and the Sword Without Trace, whose eyes were brimming with tears, wanted to rush out of the mountain range to help him withstand the damage of the dark purple lightning. Fortunately, the blood-void beast, who vaguely sensed that something was not quite right, stopped them in time and used its divine thought to explain to them why Yuhauran did this. Chapter 2022. In the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located, the dark purple divine lightning, which was at the peak of 5th-grade Supreme Martial Artist, directly struck Yuhauran down from the clouds, forcing him to fall on the peak of a mountain that was about 3,600 meters tall. At the same time, his Dantian and Sea of Consciousness both suffered very serious injuries, and were basically on the verge of collapse. Yuhauran resist. Just the 5th dark purple lightning, which was at the peak of 5th-grade Supreme Martial Artist, had already put Yuhauran in a state where he was on the verge of death. Then, facing the remaining 4 dark purple lightning, which were even more powerful, wouldn't his divine soul be destroyed, and not even his bones would be left? Therefore, Faling, whose heart was filled with endless anger, immediately made the decision to perish together with him. Faling, don't worry. Before the immeasurable calamity truly begins, and before the opportunity to advance to the immortal realm appears, the rules of Heaven Way will definitely not take my life. Although Yuhauran was on the verge of death after suffering the bombardment of the 5 dark purple lightning, he was not afraid or worried at all. Are you sure there won't be any problems? Faling asked in disbelief. I'm 100% sure. As he nodded to confirm, Yuhauran raised his head to look at the single eye that was closed again, and explained with strong confidence. Actually, the 9 dark purple divine lightning that the rules of Heaven Way sent down was mainly to punish me for secretly weakening the control of the Destiny Stone Tablet by the Destiny Spirit Mouse. Now, I've already pretended to be recovering the control of the Destiny Spirit Mouse, so as to show that I already know my mistake. Then, the remaining 4 dark purple lightning, which are the most powerful, will at most continue to punish my physical body, and will definitely not harm my Dantian and Sea of Consciousness, and will not cause me, the Son of Destiny, to fall. Just as Yuhauran finished his explanation, the 4 dark purple lightning, which were even more powerful, instantly descended on his head at a speed that transcended the barriers of time and space. But then, the 4 dark purple lightning immediately dispersed, and then went straight for his hands and legs. Boom, 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 boom. Accompanied by a deafening roar, 4 dark purple thunderbolts with powers ranging from 6th to 9th grade Supreme Martial Artist struck Yuhauran's limbs directly. However, unlike punishing the experts in the endless void, the 4 bolts of dark purple lightning that were even more powerful did not cut off his limbs. Instead, they directly destroyed and shattered his limbs. This caused Yuhauran to suffer even more pain, putting him in a dangerous situation where his life was hanging by a thread. Fortunately, after the punishment of the 4 most powerful dark purple lightning bolts was over, the eye in the void gradually disappeared and was replaced by a lightning pool. A lightning pool that was as large as a mountain range. The lightning pool was boiling with milky white energy that emitted a unique aura. Who? After seeing the lightning pool that represented the reward of the god's tribulation, Thaling, who had already planned to blow up his main body, Victor, to severely injure Cyclops, couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. However, when he saw what the lightning pool did next, his face revealed an extremely surprised expression. This was because the lightning pool that appeared in the void did not immediately release the milky white energy. Instead, a strong suction force appeared out of nowhere and sucked the hundreds of limbs floating in the void into the lightning pool. Then, they merged with the boiling milky white energy. As a primordial treasure that was born in the chaos, as a peak 9th grade supreme martial artist, Thaling was very clear that the limbs of the half-tribulation immortal experts and peak 9th grade supreme martial artists not only contained an enormous amount of divine power and soul power, but also contained the purest life essence in their blood, as well as their understanding of the power of rules. If coupled with the endless milky white energy, Yuhauran might not only be able to directly break through to the 10th grade martial god realm, but also his state of mind cultivation, physical body grade, divine power, and soul power might also be able to advance to the supreme martial artist realm. After the lightning pool had completely refined the limbs of the half-tribulation immortal experts and peak 9th grade supreme martial artists, a crack suddenly appeared at the bottom of the lightning pool. Then, a large amount of milky white energy rushed down like a waterfall. After asking Thaling to help him get into a cross-legged sitting position with his legs crossed, Yuhauran began to use the milky white energy as a reward of the god's tribulation to heal his severely damaged dantian and sea of consciousness, as well as his physical body that was on the verge of collapse. Die. However, just as the milky white energy rushed down from the void and fell on Yuhauran's body, a huge golden palm appeared above Yuhauran's head at a speed that transcended time and space. Damn it! Seeing the huge golden palm that appeared out of nowhere, the blood-void beast's expression changed and he couldn't help cursing. Originally, he thought that the most powerful and dangerous opponents of Yuhauran's god's tribulation would be the projections of the half-tribulation immortal experts and peak 9th grade supreme martial artists in the boundless void. Therefore, when the eye formed by the rules of heaven forced the projections of the experts back to the boundless void at the cost of severing their limbs, he thought that the god's tribulation was over. Not only did he completely calm down the boiling divine power and soul power in his body, but he also didn't use any special secret techniques to be alert of his surroundings. Therefore, he didn't notice the sneak attack of the huge golden palm in advance and couldn't block it in time. Fortunately, Yuhauran had a premonition that his tribulation wouldn't be so easy. Before accepting the reward of the god's tribulation, he had already notified Thaling in advance so that he could be alert of any possible sneak attack. Therefore, Thaling, who instantly appeared above Yuhauran's head, immediately waved the Yuan killer sword in his hand and slashed at the huge golden palm. Boom! Accompanied by a deafening roar, the crimson sword radiance from the Yuan killer sword cut the huge golden palm in half. Then, without any decrease in power, it went straight for the sneak attacker in the void that was 30,000 meters away. However, just as the crimson sword radiance rushed out of the mountain range, a huge palm that appeared out of nowhere hit the sword radiance. Not only did it shatter the sword radiance, but it also went straight for Yuhauran, who was accepting the reward of the god's tribulation. Xing Tian. Thaling recognized the owner of the second huge palm at first glance after he had fought with him several times during the Middle Ages and carefully checked him after he had helped him escape. He thought about how he had helped Yuhauran at every critical moment and how Yuhauran had risked his life to remove the seal of the bronze coffin and tried his best to help him fend off a strong enemy, only to be betrayed and sneak attacked in the end. Chapter 2023. In the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located. Boom! The space-time victor, driven by Thaling's anger with all his might, was already infinitely close to the immortal realm. As for Xingtian Supreme, who had yet to fully recover from his serious injuries, the power of the giant palm condensed during the sneak attack was only at the peak of 7th grade sovereign. Therefore, the more powerful spacetime victor not only directly shattered the giant palm, but also carried an indomitable momentum and directly rushed into the void about 50,000 meters away from the mountain range. However, just when the spacetime victor was less than 10,000 meters away from the void where Xingtian Supreme was hiding, a purple stone seal appeared out of thin air and heavily blasted the spacetime victor. Boom! Accompanied by a roar that resounded throughout the entire Tianxian continent, the spacetime victor was knocked back into the mountain range like a meteor. At the same time, Thaling, who was floating above Yuhauran's head, instantly turned as pale as a sheet of paper. The aura of a 9th grade sovereign that he had painstakingly recovered with the help of the chaotic spiritual energy quickly fell to the peak of 7th grade sovereign. Haotian's seal. The pagoda spirit's eyes lit up when it saw the huge, square-shaped stone seal floating in the air. It was deep purple in color and looked like a mountain. As the tower spirit gritted its teeth and pointed out the origin of the stone seal, a middle-aged man in a purple-gold robe slowly walked out of the purple stone seal floating in the void. He had a dignified appearance and a noble temperament. Seeing that the spacetime victor and violet spirit, who had suffered from his full-force sneak attack, did not suffer the heavy injuries that he had expected, the middle-aged man's expression was as calm as still water, but there was a trace of shock in his exclamation. "Violet Spirit, I didn't expect you to be so lucky to be able to recover to your peak state in such a short time." The pagoda spirit ignored the clear heaven seal's artifact spirit's shocked exclamation. It looked at the headless sky Punisher who had walked out of the void 50,000 meters away. Its eyes were filled with remorse. "I, Thaling, have rarely regretted or blamed myself for the things I've done in my life, but nurturing you, Xingtian, and helping you escape the bronze coffin seal is the thing I regret and blame myself for the most in my life. Because I didn't expect that you, Xingtian, were not only a cowardly, selfish, and treacherous person, but also a shameless person who betrayed his master for glory." In the face of Thaling's sarcasm, Xingtian Supreme did not refute. Instead, he locked onto Yuhauran with a murderous aura, ready to launch a fatal sneak attack at any time. "Violet Spirit, fellow Taoist Xingtian is not the kind of person you described him to be. He just made the right choice of choosing the right tree to nest in and the right choice of a virtuous subject to serve." Although Xingtian Supreme did not refute Thaling's sarcasm, as Xingtian Supreme's newly surrendered master, the Haotian Seal's artifact spirit had the duty and responsibility to refute on his behalf, to redeem his insulted reputation, and to further gain Xingtian Supreme's loyalty. As a primordial treasure born in the chaos, Thaling was very familiar with the personality and style of the Haotian Seal's artifact spirit. He knew that the artifact spirit had taken the initiative to defend Xingtian Supreme because he wanted to gain Xingtian's loyalty and completely subdue him. Therefore, he could not help but sow discord. As the saying goes, it's easy to change mountains and rivers, but difficult to change one's nature. Haotian, since Xingtian betrayed his best friend and attacked his savior today, he will dare to attack you from behind in the future. So I hope you will think twice about whether you want to recruit Xingtian Supreme. Haha. Faced with Thaling's provocation, Haotian could not help laughing. After laughing for nearly 10 seconds, Haotian suddenly stopped laughing and exuded a strong sense of confidence. Violet Spirit, I believe fellow Taoist Xingtian will never do something insidious like attacking you from behind, so you don't have to sow discord here. Thaling, who knew the source of the Haotian seal's artifact spirit's confidence, and knew that he was going to suppress Xingtian Supreme, reminded him with a trace of contempt in his eyes. I hope so. After all, I don't want you to die in the hands of Xingtian Boy, because only Brother Chaos and I are qualified to take your life. Hearing Thaling mention the artifact spirit of the Bell of Chaos, Haotian's gentle face darkened and a strong murderous aura surged from him. At the same time, the Haotian seal floating above his head emitted a strong purple light. Brother Haotian, as long as I can't gather all 36 marks of chaos, the Bell of Chaos will not be able to be reborn smoothly and the artifact spirit of the Bell of Chaos will not be able to wake up. Just as Hao Tian was about to attack the pagoda spirit due to his anger, a reminder came from the north of the void. Along with the reminder, a handsome young man in white clothes walked out of the torn void. At the same time, behind the white-clothed youth, there was a youth in black clothes following behind him. Void, heaven refining. Looking at the artifact spirits of the void mirror and the heaven refining pot, Thaling's face gradually became serious. After all, without the Bell of Chaos and its artifact spirit, he and the Xianyuan sword were no match for the Haotian seal, the void mirror, and the heaven refining pot. Violet Spirit, since you and I are both primordial artifacts born from the chaos, as long as you don't interfere in this boy's affairs, we'll let you live today. When the artifact spirit of the Haotian seal had completely calmed down and did not destroy the plan, the artifact spirit of the void mirror heaved a sigh of relief and looked at Thaling with a hint of complacency in its eyes. Then, it spoke in a tone that said victory was in its grasp. Void, the mark of chaos in your body is clearly far superior to that of heaven refining, Xianyuan and Xianyuan, but you've been suppressed by them. Do you know why? Thaling asked with a smile, not angry at all in the face of the void mirror's choice. Why? The young man in white, who did not know that he had been tricked, immediately asked. Because of your stupidity, your ignorance, your arrogance, and your ignorance. Thaling, who had been deeply affected by Yu Haoran's sharp words, attacked the artifact spirit of the void mirror's weak spot with every word. This caused the young man in white's complacent smile to be instantly replaced by a ferocious expression of anger. Violet Spirit, die. After a furious roar, the young man in white immediately mobilized the origin energy of the void mirror and used the precept martial technique he had created. Emptiness. Fleeting time. Seeing that the artifact spirit of the void mirror had attacked in anger because it could not bear the humiliation of his words, Thaling was secretly delighted and immediately used the precept martial technique he had created. Chapter 2024. In the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located, the 7 innate cardinal treasures nurtured in the chaos had different strengths according to the number of marks of chaos in their bodies and the different opportunities and realizations they encountered in the later stages. Among the 7 innate cardinal treasures, the Bell of Chaos and the Weapon Spirit of Chaos were the strongest, followed by the Haotian Seal and the Haotian Weapon Spirit, the Spacetime Victor and the Purple Spirit, the Xianyuan Sword and the Xianyuan Weapon Spirit, the Void Mirror and the Heaven Refining Flask and the Heaven Refining Weapon Spirit, and the Yellow Blade and the Yellow Weapon Spirit. Among them, the Weapon Spirit of Chaos and Weapon Spirit of Haotian had reached the half-tribulation immortal realm. The remaining weapon spirits of Xianyuan, Void, Heaven Refining, and Xian Huang were all at the peak of 9th grade sovereign realm. Thaling's cultivation and strength were a little special. Although he was only at the peak of the 9th grade supreme realm, he had merged with all the memories and realizations of the previous half-tribulation immortal realm weapon spirit, which made him infinitely close to the 1 tribulation immortal realm. Therefore, the Tower Spirit's law martial technique, time fleeting, quickly broke through the Void Realm Artifact Spirit's law martial technique. Then, it carried less than a third of its power and continued to attack the white-clothed youth. Eternal suppression. When the Void Mirror's weapon spirit couldn't stand Thaling's humiliation and attacked in anger, the Hautian weapon spirit knew that he was no match for Supreme Violet Spirit. Therefore, the moment the Void Mirror's weapon spirit lost, he immediately used a rule force martial technique to counter the remaining power of the fleeting time martial technique. Xianyuan, do it! Thaling's eyes flashed with excitement when he saw the Hautian weapon spirit attack. He immediately used his divine thought to instruct the Xianyuan beast hidden in the mountain ranges array and the Xianyuan weapon spirit hiding in Lu Yuan's sea of consciousness. Golden mouth and jade words. The Xianyuan weapon spirit, who quickly left Lu Yuan's sea of consciousness, cooperated with the Xianyuan sword and used a rule force martial technique to attack the heaven refining weapon spirit. Soul seize. At the same time, the Blood Void beast immediately mobilized all of its divine power and soul power to drive the golden soul-seizing formation that Thaling had set up personally. It attacked the Void Mirror's artifact spirit, who was in a daze because of its temporary loss. Damn it! With his spirit body that had yet to fully recover from his severe injuries, Lien Tian could only unleash the power of an early-stage 7th-grade sovereign. In addition, the heaven refining pot was slightly inferior to the Xianyuan sword. Therefore, in the face of Xianyuan's sneak attack, the heaven refinement artifact's spirit cursed inwardly and hurriedly used a martial technique with the power of laws. Swallow the mountains and rivers. Damn it! The Void Mirror artifact spirit also hurriedly unleashed a power of laws upon sensing the Blood Void Beast's sneak attack. It's empty. Boom. Boom. Following two booms, the Xianyuan artifact spirit used a rule force martial technique that combined destiny and rule force. After destroying the Swallow the Mountains and Rivers technique, the remaining one-third of the rule force martial technique landed heavily on the heaven refinement artifact's spirit. The Blood Void beast used all of its strength to drive the golden soul-seizing formation's attack. After destroying the empty rule force martial technique, the remaining two-thirds of the rule force martial technique landed heavily on the Void Mirror's artifact spirit. The Heaven Refinement artifact spirit and the Void Mirror's artifact spirit both spat out blood one after another. Their faces were as pale as paper as they took a dozen steps back. Their powerful auras immediately weakened. Xianyuan, Blood Void Beast. Seeing that the Heaven Refinement artifact spirit and the Void Mirror's artifact spirit had been severely injured in an instant and had successfully destroyed the Hautian artifact spirit's Phalanx rule force martial technique, he looked at the Xianyuan sword's artifact spirit and the Blood Void Beast with a gloomy expression. Ignoring the Hautian artifact spirit's angry glare, Thaling lowered his head and glanced at Yuhauran, who was devouring the god Tribulation Thunder's reward with all his strength. Seeing that Meng Qi had successfully repaired the damage to his Dantian and Sea of Consciousness, and was using the endless milky white energy to break through to the 7th grade martial god realm, Thaling hesitated. With the boundless reward of the god Tribulation Thunder's reward and the energy from the hundreds of peak 9th grade sovereign and half-true immortal realm experts in the lightning pool, it was enough for Yuhauran to completely transform his cultivation and strength. The prerequisite was that he could not be disturbed or destroyed. However, he had managed to severely injure the artifact spirits of the Void Mirror and the Heaven Refinement Pot with a sneak attack, so he was unwilling to give up the opportunity to take revenge. Moreover, the Void Mirror's artifact spirit still had the chaos imprint of the Chaos Spell. However, when Yuhauran's cultivation had successfully advanced to the 7th grade martial god realm and continued to break through to a higher realm, the hesitation in Thaling's eyes was instantly replaced by determination. In the end, he made a difficult choice. He raised his head and looked at the gloomy Hautian, then at the pale-faced Void Mirrors and Heaven Refinement artifact spirits, and said calmly, Haotian, void mirror, heaven refinement artifact, seeing that we are all innate treasures born from the chaos, as long as you are willing to leave, I, Ziling, promise not to interfere. Ziling, do you think that I, Haotian, don't have any means to deal with you after losing the support of void mirror and heaven refinement artifact? Do you think that victory is already in your hands? Thaling's artifact spirit was so angry that he laughed and asked angrily in the face of his forgiveness. Haotian, do you have any trump card to turn the tables? Thaling, who had already guessed the artifact spirit's confidence, asked calmly. That's right. I do have a trump card to turn the tables. While nodding, Haotian's artifact spirit immediately released a powerful aura that reached the peak of the 9th grade martial god realm. Then, Haotian's artifact spirit took a step forward, and the aura of the peak of the 9th grade martial god realm suddenly rose to the peak of the first tribulation of the immortal realm. With the strength that I, Haotian, have recovered to the peak of the realm, it is enough to destroy your and Xuanyuan's divine soul bodies and your physical bodies. Facing the aura of the peak of the first tribulation of the immortal realm, Thaling, Xuanyuan's artifact spirit, and the blood void beast didn't show any signs of panic. This made Haotian's artifact spirit, who was full of confidence, confused. Haotian, if you face the projections of Blue Dragon Supreme, White Tiger Supreme, Vermilion Bird Supreme, and Black Tortoise Supreme, do you have the confidence to defeat them? Thaling, who was still as calm as water, asked. Facing Thaling's question, Haotian's artifact spirit, whose aura had weakened slightly, shook his head and replied solemnly, No. Chapter 2025. In the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located. Ever since the Great War of Weapons at the beginning of the world, apart from the 7 Khanate cardinal treasures, all the remaining Khanate spiritual treasures had become weapons of all living beings. At the same time, after a long period of cultivation in the Primeval Age, the Middle Age, and the Near Age, the weapon spirits of the 7 natural supreme treasures were at a disadvantage compared to the top geniuses of all living creatures in terms of cultivation and strength. The blue dragon, the white tiger, the vermilion bird, and the black tortoise were the most outstanding geniuses of all living beings. The speed and height of their cultivation and strength were beyond the reach of the Haotian weapon spirit. This was one of the important reasons why the Haotian weapon spirit had been hiding in the dark all this time. Haotian, you don't have the confidence to defeat the blue dragon, the white tiger, the vermilion bird, and the black tortoise's projections, but I, purple spirit, do. Facing the slightly weakened Haotian weapon spirit, Thaling immediately spoke with great confidence. Furthermore, not only do I have the strength to defeat them, but I also have the means to kill their projections. I don't believe it. The Haotian weapon spirit questioned in disbelief. If one had the strength and means to defeat and kill the blue dragon, the white tiger, the vermilion bird, and the black tortoise's projections, one would have the strength to kill their spirit bodies and destroy their true bodies. Then, under the premise that they had an irreconcilable hatred for each other, why would Thaling suddenly choose to let go in the end? Because the means to defeat and kill the blue dragon, the white tiger, the vermilion bird, and the black tortoise's projections are not used to deal with you, Haotian, Su Kong, and Lien Tian. After replying to the Haotian weapon spirit's question, Thaling looked directly at the central region with an extremely solemn expression. Let's go. Looking back in the direction of the central region, the Haotian weapon spirit vaguely guessed who the next opponent would be. After a trace of horror flashed in his eyes, he immediately ordered the weapon spirits of the void mirror and the heaven refining pot. Are you going to give up just like that? Xingtian Supreme, who had been looking for an opportunity to sneak attack Yu Haoran, was very puzzled by the Haotian weapon spirit's decision to retreat without a fight. His heart was filled with unwillingness to give up. Xingtian, if you don't want your spirit body, the weapon spirit body, Xingtian Supreme. Xingtian, 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 directly Tian, Xingtian, Xingtian, Tian, Xingtian, Tian, Xingtian. What a bunch of cowards! Xingtian Supreme, who had once run amok in the Middle Ages, was arrogant, so he was not afraid of any threat from experts in the world. Even in the Middle Ages, when facing hundreds of strong enemies at the half-immortal realm and the supreme realm, he still dared to fight desperately. Therefore, Xingtian Supreme, who was completely disappointed in Haotian's weapon spirit, continued to stay in the same place, looking for an opportunity to sneak attack Yu Haoran. In response, the tower spirit did not immediately deal with him. Instead, it sneered disdainfully and continued to look in the direction of the central region. Peak of the 7th grade martial god realm. Peak of the 8th grade martial god realm. Peak of the 9th grade martial god realm. Yu Haoran did not encounter any sneak attacks or disturbances until he reached the peak of the 9th grade martial god realm with the help of the boundless god tribulation thunders. However, Faling, who was standing in the clouds, did not relax at all. Instead, he became more and more serious. Boom! When Yu Haoran was about to use the reward of the god tribulation thunders and the divine pulse and myriad drug milk that he had prepared in advance to break through to the complete 10th grade martial god realm, a terrifying aura that could destroy stars suddenly surged out from a mountain range at the border of the central region and the eastern region. 5 seconds later, a terrifying aura that could destroy stars also surged out from an ordinary city at the border of the central region and the western region as if it was affected and provoked by the terrifying aura. 5 seconds later, a terrifying aura that could destroy stars also surged out from White Bone City, one of the 10 forbidden places in the Tianxian continent. 5 seconds later, a terrifying aura that could destroy stars surged out from Green Lake Mountain at the border of the southern region and the eastern region. 5 seconds later, a terrifying aura that could destroy stars surged out from a swamp at the border of the central region and the northern region. 5 seconds later, a terrifying aura that could destroy stars surged out from a nameless valley at the border of the eastern region and the southern region. To be able to destroy stars in the endless void with just the terrifying aura alone, one had to be at least at the second tribulation immortal realm. In other words, the terrifying auras that surged out from different regions of the Tianxian continent just now all belonged to experts at the second tribulation immortal realm. Not only did Xingtian Supreme and Buddha Dao, who was still hiding in the endless void, change their expressions, but even the experts in the endless void who were watching Yu Haoran's god tribulation had a solemn look in their eyes. They realized that their understanding of the Tianxian continent was seriously wrong. It seemed that the Tianxian continent, which seemed to be suppressed by the rules of heaven and affected by the environment, had less overall strength and number of top experts than the ancient era, middle era, and recent era. However, judging from the 6 terrifying auras that surged out just now, the hidden top experts in the Tianxian continent were probably much stronger than those in the endless void. Ziling, what should we do next? The blood void beast, who appeared next to Faling in a flash, looked in the direction where the terrifying auras surged out and asked with a solemn expression. In fact, before Yu Haoran had prepared to break through to the martial god realm, he had already predicted that the greatest danger he would face in the God Tribulation Thunder punishment was not the projections of the Supremes and Half-Tribulation Immortal Realm experts in the Endless Void, but the Half-Tribulation Immortal Realm experts hidden in the forbidden areas of the Tianxian continent. According to his experience over the years and his understanding of the Tianxian continent, he predicted that there would be 2 to 3 half-tribulation immortal realm experts who would interfere with his god tribulation this time. Therefore, they had set up measures to deal with the 3 half-tribulation immortal realm experts based on Yu Haoran's prediction and judgment. Now, the blood void beast, who had fallen into a panic, didn't know what to do when faced with 2 times the number of terrifying experts. Faling ignored the blood void beast's question and took a deep breath. He retracted his gaze from the terrifying auras, and appeared in front of Yu Haoran in a flash. He forcefully interrupted Yu Haoran's attempt to break through to the complete 10th grade martial god realm. Chapter 2026. In the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located. Originally, Yu Haoran had wanted to ask the tower's spirit why it had suddenly interrupted his breakthrough and made him give up on the breakthrough opportunity that he had fought so hard for. However, when he felt the same 6 terrifying auras from different regions of the profound sky continent, Yu Haoran's face instantly darkened. The half-tribulation immortal realm was very different from any other realm and different tribulations of the same realm. If the gap between a 1-tribulation immortal realm and a 9th-grade supreme realm was 100 times, then the gap between a 2-tribulation immortal realm and a 1-tribulation immortal realm was 10,000 times. It was already difficult to resist 3 2-tribulation immortal realm experts even if he used all his trump cards and defensive means, let alone 6 2-tribulation immortal realm experts at the same time. Therefore, Yu Haoran didn't hesitate too much and decided to give up the opportunity to break through to the complete 10th grade martial god realm. Thaling, tell everyone to return to the Prince Mansion immediately. Then, put the Prince Mansion into the victor's body and get ready to leave at any time. Got it. Thaling heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Yu Haoran's decision to give up the opportunity to break through to the complete 10th grade martial god realm. He immediately used his divine thought to inform everyone in the mountain range to follow Yu Haoran's order. Raising his head to look at the lightning pool that had shrunk to less than 1% of its original size, Yu Haoran thought of the milky white energy inside the lightning pool that could completely transform his cultivation and strength. For the first time, Yu Haoran felt an uncontrollable killing intent towards the half-tribulation immortal realm experts hiding in the Tianxian continent. You should start praying now. Pray that I, Yu Haoran, can't take away the control of the Destiny Stone Tablet from the Destiny Spirit Rat. Otherwise, your divine souls will be destroyed on the day when the infinite calamity ends. After silently swearing to himself, Yu Haoran slowly closed his eyes and combined the mysteries of the laws of space with his divine sense. He set up spatial coordinates in advance between the southern and eastern regions, between the southern and western regions, and between the southern and central regions, so that he could escape from the southern region in time. At the same time, he forcibly absorbed a huge amount of milky white energy with the Great Devouring Technique. He hoped he could successfully rank up to the perfect 10th grade martial god realm before leaving the mountain range where the sect was located. The last place where the terrifying aura had appeared was a nameless valley at the border of the eastern and southern regions. The nameless valley was less than 2,000 li away from the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located. Therefore, as soon as the 100,000 elite soldiers and the people of the 100 Chi Gate entered the mansion, a massive silver chessboard quickly appeared in the air above the mountain range. World Extermination Chessboard. Looking up at the silver chessboard that appeared in the void above his head, Thaling's eyes flashed with a trace of enlightenment as he muttered to himself. No wonder the 3 spirits of annihilation with ordinary cultivation could suppress the half-tribulation immortal experts in the Forbidden Zone. It turns out that the World Extermination Chessboard condensed by the heavens and earth after the Great Calamity is in their hand. The World Extermination Chessboard with the power to destroy the heavens and earth and the consciousness to control the heavens. It seems that the 3 spirits of annihilation are Yu Haoran's greatest calamity. Brother Purple Spirit, Brother Scorching Sun, Silver Moon, and Vast Star greet you. When the silver chessboard slowly stopped in the void, the 3 spirits of annihilation, Scorching Sun, Silver Moon, and Vast Star, stood up at the same time and cupped their fists together. Greetings, Brother Scorching Sun, Brother Silver Moon, and Brother Vast Star. Both the consciousness of the heavens and the world extermination chessboard could give the three spirits of annihilation the strength of the half-tribulation immortal realm. Therefore, even though the three spirits of annihilation's cultivation base was far inferior to his, Thaling did not hesitate to return their greetings. He then cupped his fists together and asked, "May I know why the three of you have suddenly come to the 100 Chi Gate?" After glancing at Yuhauran, who was breaking through to the next realm, Scorching Sun, who had the strongest cultivation base, replied with a smile, "The Son of Destiny has encountered a calamity. We three brothers have come to help." After hearing Scorching Sun's reply, Thaling was stunned for a moment. He then carefully pondered over what they had just said and quickly guessed the real reason why the three spirits of annihilation had come to help. Perhaps they were like the experts in the endless void. They had their eyes on the Son of Destiny's ability to decide the final fate of the immeasurable calamity. The difference was that the three spirits of annihilation hoped to gain Yuhauran's friendship by helping him. The experts in the endless void wanted to choose the new Son of Destiny that they could control after killing Yuhauran. Although the three spirits of annihilation had their own reasons for helping, Thaling was delighted that they could resolve the danger that Yuhauran was facing and allow him to continue using the rewards of the god's tribulation to achieve a transformation in his cultivation base and strength. He hurriedly cupped his fists together and promised, "Thank you, fellow Taoists, for your assistance today. I believe Yuhauran will absolutely not forget your kindness and will definitely repay you in the future." At the same time, he was not in a hurry to put the prince's mansion back into his victor body. After all, the prince's mansion was the cornerstone of the stellar transposition formation. Forcefully moving it would definitely affect the operation of the formation. The three spirits of annihilation, who were well aware of the special relationship between Violet Spirit and Yuhauran, smiled happily after hearing his promise on behalf of Yuhauran. Then, they returned to their positions and began to activate the terrifying aura of the destroyer chessboard to deter the approaching expert. The mountain range that was the second closest to the 100 Chi Gate was the Qinghu mountain range that bordered the eastern region and the southern region. When the three spirits of annihilation activated the power of the destroyer chessboard, fierce beast Denglong, who carried a monstrous killing intent, quickly appeared at the edge of the mountain range. "Greetings, brother Denglong." Facing fierce beast Denglong, who appeared at the edge of the mountain range, Thaling also did not dare to be negligent and cupped his fists together to greet him. "May I know why brother Denglong suddenly came here? Help me refine an elixir, and I will help him defeat an opponent." Fierce beast Denglong glanced at Yuhauran with murderous intent and then looked back at Thaling. Then, in a sonorous voice, he told Thaling the reason why he suddenly came to the mountain range. After hearing fierce beast Denglong's request, Thaling could not help but frown. Judging from the terrifying aura that fierce beast Denglong had just unleashed, it meant that his true cultivation had probably reached the second tribulation immortal realm. The elixir required for this level of cultivation was probably a divine elixir that surpassed level 1. With Yuhauran's alchemy divinity realm, he could not even refine a divine elixir of level 1 or above. How could he possibly refine a divine elixir that surpassed level 1? Moreover, if the experts in the endless void were temporarily unable to use their projections to descend to the Tianxian continent 3 months ago, his request would be barely reasonable. Chapter 2027. In the mountains where the 100 Chi Gate was located. Boom! While Thaling was wondering about fierce beast Chi's request, Yuhauran, who was sitting cross-legged on the mountain, suddenly heard a dull thunder from his body. Along with the dull thunder, a terrifying aura that could destroy the void rampart quickly rose from his body. Zhuori, Silvermoon, and Fan Xing, who were sitting cross-legged on the chessboard of annihilation, felt the impact of the terrifying aura, and their eyes were filled with doubt. This was because when they arrived at the mountain where the 100 Chi gate was located, Yu Haoran had successfully broken through to the peak 9th grade martial god realm. Now, the terrifying aura that emerged from his body showed that he had made a qualitative and quantitative breakthrough in his realm, but it was obviously not the supreme realm. So, what did Yu Haoran's breakthrough mean? In fact, not only were Zhuori, Silvermoon, and Fan Xing very confused, but even Fierce Beast Qi and the peak 9th grade martial artists and half-tribulation, immortal realm experts in the Endless Void were also very confused. In the void about 1,000,000 miles away from the mountain, an old man in a green robe with slightly gray hair and a ruddy face frowned slightly when he saw the terrifying aura rising from Yu Haoran's body. Then, the old man in green robe quickly formed a seal with his fingers to intercept the aura that rose from Yu Haoran's body when he broke through to the next realm. After analyzing the aura of the terrifying aura and combining it with his omniscient experience, the green-robed old man's breathing suddenly became heavier. He clenched his fists tightly and roared in his heart like raging waves. The complete realm. This is the legendary complete 10th grade realm. According to the ancient legends, if someone can break through to the legendary complete 10th grade realm, then he can break the shackles of the rules of heaven and use his own cultivation to break through to the immortal realm, which is eternal and indestructible. Is there going to be a change that even the rules of heaven and fate can't control in this calamity of heaven and earth? After roaring in his heart, the green-robed man looked at Yu Haoran, who was slowly withdrawing his terrifying aura. There was a hint of hesitation and struggle in his eyes. Yu Haoran felt extremely lucky that he was able to successfully advance to the complete 10th grade martial god realm before retreating from the mountain range where the sect was located. At the same time, he hurriedly withdrew the terrifying aura that surged out of his body when he made the breakthrough. After all, the threat of the 6 half-tribulation immortal realm experts made it impossible for him to continue improving his cultivation base and strength. He also didn't have the time to experience the changes in his power after breaking through. However, when he opened his eyes and saw the gigantic silver chessboard floating at the edge of the mountain range, as well as the ferocious beast Denglong at the bottom of the Green Lake mountain range, a trace of fear flashed in his eyes. He instinctively planned to use the profound mysteries of the laws of space to escape the scene. After all, he had witnessed the power and terror of the Denglong with his own eyes. He knew that he and Thaling were no match for the Denglong. Fortunately, Thaling discovered that he had awakened from his breakthrough in time and immediately used his divine thought to explain what had just happened. This made him heave a long sigh of relief, and he hurriedly withdrew the profound mysteries of the laws of space. Although the ultimate goal of the 3 spirits of destruction was to peek at the opportunity of breaking through in the immeasurable calamity, this was human nature. It was much gentler and more honorable than the methods that Blue Dragon and the others had used to restrict his freedom and deprive him of his identity as the son of destiny. Therefore, Yu Haoran, who was grateful, hurriedly withdrew his cultivation and stood up. He cupped his fists and thanked them with a solemn expression. Junior Yu Haoran greets the 3 seniors. Many thanks to the 3 seniors for their help. Son of Destiny, there's no need to be so courteous. This is what we should do. Whether it was his identity as the Son of Destiny, or the terrifying talent and potential that he constantly displayed, Yu Haoran's status and influence were no less than that of Supreme Violet Spirit. Therefore, in the face of Yu Haoran's solemn thanks, Zhuori, Silvermoon, and Fanxing did not dare to neglect and hurriedly stood up to return the greeting. In order to deduce the true intentions of the Denglong, one must know the type and grade of the pill that he wanted to refine. Therefore, although he was also very puzzled, Yu Haoran did not make wild guesses like Thaling. Instead, he cupped his fists and bowed solemnly and directly asked. Junior Yu Haoran greets Senior Denglong. I wonder what type and grade of pill does Senior Denglong need this junior to refine? A Qi refining pill of the 1st grade of the 10th level. After hearing Yu Haoran's question, The fierce look in Denglong's eyes gradually softened, and he said with a gentle expression. Upon hearing that the pill that Denglong wanted to refine was the most ordinary qi refining pill of the 10th level, whether it was Thaling, Spirit Destroyer, Xingtian Supreme, the Master of Buddhism, or the peak 9th grade Supremes and half-tribulation Immortal Realm experts in the Endless Void, their eyes were filled with disbelief. After all, 4 experts at their level, a qi refining pill of the 10th level, was simply trash. They would not pick it up if it fell on the roadside, and they would even complain that it took up space in their storage. Yu Haoran, who suspected that he had misheard, swallowed a mouthful of saliva and asked, "Senior Denglong, are you sure that the pill that you want this junior to refine is an ordinary qi refining pill of the 10th level?" "Yes, it is indeed a qi refining pill of the 10th level." Denglong, who looked gentle, nodded and confirmed. After getting the confirmation from Denglong, Yu Haoran forcibly suppressed the shock in his heart, and then he tried to guess the reason why Denglong had done so. But the result of his guess, other than making him more confused and having a headache, was that he could not figure out the reason why Denglong had done so. "Yu Haoran, as long as you refine a qi refining pill of the 10th level for me, I will help you deal with Bone King Supreme of White Bone City." Denglong smiled and urged as he pointed at the terrifying expert who was less than 1,000 miles away from the mountain. Turning his head to look at the terrifying aura that was emitting a gloomy aura, Yu Haoran recalled the arrogant and overbearing characters of Denglong and Bone King Supreme. He vaguely felt that he had guessed Denglong's real intention of helping him. Without the slightest hesitation, he directly scanned the entire mountain with his powerful divine thought and instantly collected 9 types of medicinal materials needed to refine the qi refining pill. Then, he used the 2nd level of the void pill condensation technique to successfully refine 9 translucent qi refining pills of the 1st grade of the 10th grade right before Bone King arrived at the mountain range. "Yu Haoran, since you have fulfilled the conditions of the deal, it is now time for me to fulfill my promise." After raising his claws and sucking away a qi refining pill of the 10th level, Denglong roared at the sky and directly charged at Bone King Supreme, who had just revealed himself. "Damn Denglong, it really is you!" Chapter 2028. In the mountain range where the 100 Qi Gate was located. Heaven's baleful flames. The Denglong, who was charging at Bone King, let out a roar. 2 streams of black flames shot out from its eyes, emitting a strong baleful aura. The 2 black flames quickly merged and turned into a sea of black fire that could cover the entire mountain range. World of Bones. Bone King didn't want to be outdone when he saw Denglong using his strongest attack right from the start. It was the same technique he used to kill the White Tiger's projection, using the power of laws. A world of countless white bones quickly appeared in the bony palm, without a trace of flesh and blood. Then, it directly aimed at the black sea of fire that was rushing towards it. There was no fierce attack or struggle. The black sea of fire was slowly devoured by the world of bones. After the black sea of fire completely merged with the world of bones, Bone King's eyes revealed a hint of contempt and provocation. "Denglong, do you dare to enter the world of bones and fight me?" Denglong's response to Bone King's provocation was very simple. It followed the strong suction force formed by the bone palm and entered the world of bones. Then, it immediately merged with the black sea of fire. Damn it! Bone King cursed inwardly when he saw Denglong begin to burn the world of bones on a large scale after merging with the black sea of fire. He quickly entered the world of bones, leaving behind a city of bones that had shrunk countless times floating in the air. The moment Bone King entered the world of bones, a terrifying expert from an ordinary city at the border of the central and western regions quickly arrived at the edge of the mountain range. The King of Purification, Zhuori, who was sitting cross-legged on the World Annihilation chessboard, abruptly opened his eyes when he saw a white-haired old man in a white robe and holding a dragon-headed scepter. He called out the old man's identity with a grave expression. The King of Purification. When Yuhauran heard Juari call out the origin of the white-robed old man, he vaguely felt a sense of familiarity. It was as if he had heard this name somewhere before. When he saw the purple dragon head on the scepter in the white-robed old man's hand, a thought suddenly flashed through his mind. He immediately thought of the precious gift that the hidden dragon Fortune had left him when it returned to the Void Zone. That was the world purification that the hidden dragon Fortune had established. And the leader in charge of managing and developing world cleansing was the King of World Cleansing. However, even if he had successfully accumulated the potential of the hidden dragon luck, his cultivation had only just reached the martial god realm. Then, how did it cultivate and suppress the world-cleansing king who had reached the second tribulation of the immortal realm? Thinking up to this point, Yuhauran directly mobilized the mysteries of the law of space and sent a strand of his consciousness into the void. After quickly searching for the dormant, hidden dragon blessing, he used a dragon scale he had left behind to forcefully awaken it. Who dares to disturb my cultivation? Entering a state of deep sleep for less than 2 years was equivalent to closing one's eyes for a unique existence like the hidden dragon Providence. Being suddenly awakened at this time made the hidden dragon Providence very angry. However, when it saw that the person who had forcefully awakened it was Yuhauran, the person it had valued the most in the 5 regions hidden dragon ranking battle, it could only suppress its anger and ask, "Young friend, why did you suddenly awaken me? Senior, take a look for yourself." After using the mysteries of the law of space to forcefully open a gap in the void zone, Yuhauran pointed at the white-robed old man who was standing at the edge of the mountain range and talking to the spirits of 3 extinguishers and the Thaling. "It's him, Mu Beiying." The moment it saw the white-robed old man at the edge of the mountain range, the hidden dragon Providence, which was originally in a gaseous state, quickly condensed into a purple divine dragon that was hundreds of thousands of meters long. Its mountain-like dragon eyes revealed a trace of anger as it roared. As I expected, he already had the intention to betray me. Moreover, his cultivation base has secretly increased to the peak of the second tribulation of the immortal realm. Senior, is the method you left me to control the World Purification Organization still effective against the World Purification King? Through the hidden dragon Providence's angry reaction, Yuhauran, who was 100% sure of the white-robed old man's origin, pointed at the dragon scale he had used to awaken the hidden dragon Providence. "I'm afraid it won't work now." The hidden dragon Providence shook its head and explained as it glanced at the dragon scale in Yuhauran's hand with its huge dragon eyes. "The method I used to control all the members of the World Purification Organization was a blood contract formed by the fusion of the divine soul and the power of law. Now that Mu Beiying's cultivation base has reached the peak of the second tribulation of the immortal realm, the blood contract has been broken by the power of law. Therefore, the method I left in the dragon scale won't work anymore. In that case, you can continue to cultivate in seclusion, Senior. I'll think of a way to deal with the World Purification King." The reason he had awakened the hidden dragon Providence was to confirm whether the method it had left behind to control the World Purification Organization was effective. If it was effective, he would use the dragon scale in his hand to deal with the World Purification King and let Spirit Extinguisher deal with the 5th terrifying expert who was about to arrive at the mountain range. If it was ineffective, he would have to let Spirit Extinguisher deal with the World Purification King. Then, he would use the method he had prepared beforehand to let Thaling and Blood Void Beast deal with the remaining 2 terrifying experts. "Young friend, please wait a moment." Just as Yuhauran's body soared into the sky and was about to leave the void zone through the space law's opening, the hidden dragon Providence hastily urged him to stay. Turning his head to look at the purple divine dragon condensed by the hidden dragon Providence, Yuhauran asked puzzledly, "Senior, is there anything else?" Young friend, since Mu Beiying is my subordinate, I have an obligation to deal with him for you, the hidden dragon Providence, which was rapidly shrinking, replied. Senior, I don't mean to look down on you. However, with your current cultivation base and strength, how are you going to deal with Mu Beiying, who has reached the peak of the second tribulation immortal realm? Although Yu Haoran was deeply touched by the hidden dragon Providence's willingness to help him, the purple divine dragon the hidden dragon Providence displayed was only at the peak of the 9th stage martial god realm. With such cultivation base and strength, let alone dealing with the world purification king, he might not even be able to withstand the terrifying aura the world purification king unintentionally emitted. That's right. With my current cultivation base and strength, let alone a terrifying half-tribulation immortal realm expert, even an ordinary supreme being is no match for me. The hidden dragon Providence, which had shrunk to the size of a grain of rice, explained with a smile while merging with Yu Haoran's mind. Only Mu Beitong, whom I personally cultivated, can be countered and destroyed by me. Senior, are you sure? After hearing the hidden dragon Providence's explanation, Yu Haoran was wild with joy and couldn't help but further confirm. Chapter 2029. In the mountain range where the 100 Qi Gate was located. So it's the three spirits of annihilation that carried the destructive power of the ancient, middle, and near-ancient eras. After being pointed out by Zhuori, the world purification King Mu Beiying glanced at Zhuori, Yin, and Fan Xing on the silver chessboard. His eyes revealed a trace of disdain, and he indifferently pointed out their true identities and origins. My apologies. My apologies. No matter if it was the chessboard that had the destructive power of the ancient era or the heaven's will that could control all living things, the three spirits of annihilation had the strength and confidence to look down on all heroes. Even the half-tribulation immortal experts in the endless void had to greet them respectfully, and they had to be courteous when talking to them. Mu Beiying's eyes and tone of disdain just now made Zhuori, Yin, and Fan Xing furiously stand up. At the same time, their bodies surged with fierce killing intent. Mu Beiying didn't seem to care about this at all. He then looked at Thaling, whose eyes were filled with doubt, and cupped his hands solemnly. World Purification King Mu Beiying greets Senior Purple Spirit. World Purification King, have we met before? Although the appearance and aura of the three spirits of annihilation were extremely unfamiliar, Thaling vaguely felt a trace of familiarity. He felt like he had seen this person a long time ago, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't recall the slightest bit. And Mu Beiying's solemn greeting just now intensified this feeling in his heart. This made Thaling couldn't help but ask. Without a trace, come and go like the wind. Shadows appear and supremes fall. Faced with Thaling's questioning, Mu Beiying muttered a phrase that had been passed down since the Middle Ancient era. His white robe gradually turned black. So you're the hidden Shadow King. After hearing Mu Beiying's words just now, Zhuori's expression suddenly changed, and he involuntarily shouted. The scorching sun that bore the destructive power of the ancient continent possessed the ability to control and supervise the consciousness of the heavens. No matter if it was the 4 great guardian clans from ancient times, the 5 great hidden clans that were inextricably linked to ancient powerhouses, or the forbidden zones of different times, he basically knew them all like the back of his hand. However, he could not pinpoint the exact location of a force that appeared out of nowhere in the Middle Ages, nor could he truly understand the specific situation of this force. This organization was known as the world's #1 assassin organization, Shadow, which had existed since the Middle Ages and modern times. So it's you. As the white robe was replaced by a black robe, Mu Beiying's appearance and aura changed greatly. This change in appearance and aura was exactly the same as a person in Thaling's impression. This person was one of Sovereign Skirich's few good friends. He was the Shadow King Mu Wuying, who had entrusted him to refine many magic tools. That's right. Seeing that Faling had already recalled who he was, Mu Beiying nodded in confirmation and bowed once more with a solemn expression. Junior Mu Wuying greets Senior Purple Spirit. Mu Wuying continued with a grateful expression on his face. Senior Purple Spirit, not only are you a close friend of Sovereign Skirich, but you have also helped me and Shadow many times. So, out of respect for you, my Shadow Organization and World Purification Organization have never caused trouble for Gu Haoran since the beginning of the Southern Region's Hidden Dragon rankings. Speaking up to here, Mu Beiying's grateful expression was quickly replaced by a serious one. At the same time, his black robe was replaced by a white robe. Now, regardless of whether it is Yu Haoran's identity as the Chosen One or his heaven-defying growth rate, there is a fatal hidden danger for Shadow and World Purification Organizations. Therefore, I hope that Senior can give face to Sovereign Skirich and not continue to interfere in Yu Haoran's matters. Wuying, do you think this is possible? Faced with Mu Beiying's reminder, or rather warning, Faling asked with an indifferent expression. In that case, Senior Purple Spirit, please don't blame Junior for not showing any mercy. Faling's refusal was not at all unexpected to Mu Beiying. After righteously stating that he was forced into a corner, he directly raised the dragon head scepter in his hand. King of Shadow, your opponents are us. Just as Mu Beiying was about to attack Faling and Yu Haoran, he activated the World Annihilation Chessboard's Scorching Sun with all his strength and shouted sternly, Senior Scorching Sun, please stop. Just as the three spirits were activating the World Annihilation Chessboard's power and preparing to fight Mu Beiying's Dragon Head Scepter, Yu Haoran, whose consciousness had returned to his body in time, shouted to stop them. Yu Haoran's shout not only stopped the three spirits from activating the World Annihilation Chessboard, but also caused Mu Beiying to lower his Dragon Head Scepter. What's wrong, Chosen One? Although Scorching Sun had stopped activating the World Annihilation Chessboard, his hands never left the chessboard. His eyes were filled with confusion. Senior Scorching Sun, your and the other two seniors' opponents are not the King of Purification, but that terrifying expert. Yu Haoran pointed at the fifth terrifying expert who had just charged into the southern region. After giving a simple explanation, he looked at Mu Beiying, whose eyes were also filled with confusion. At the same time, this junior has already arranged an opponent for the leader of World Annihilation. Who is it? Where did this expert come from? Who? Hearing that Yu Haoran had already arranged an opponent for the King of Purification, Faling, Scorching Sun, and Mu Beiying all asked at the same time. Ignoring Faling and Scorching Sun's questions, Yu Haoran raised his head and looked directly at Mu Beiying. World Annihilation King, the opponent this son-in-law has arranged for you is a senior who has nurtured you, protected you, and taught you. It seemed that the senior who had nurtured him, protected him, and taught him was the only one who had helped him establish world annihilation and avoided the ancient and recent era's hidden dragon luck. And the truth was just as he had guessed. Senior, show yourself. As Yu Haoran shouted, a purple divine dragon that was hundreds of thousands of meters long rushed out of his spiritual sea. Roar! Then, the purple divine dragon roared at the sky and charged directly at Mu Fengying, who was standing at the edge of the mountain range. Mu Fengying's expression changed when he saw the purple divine dragon formed by the hidden dragon luck. He could not help but take a few steps back. However, when he saw that the purple divine dragon was only a peak 9th grade martial god, he quickly stabilized his body and a disdainful sneer flashed through his eyes. Chapter 2030. In the mountain where the 100 Chi Gate was located, faced with the angry question of the hidden dragon blessing, Mu Fengying flashed a trace of contempt in his eyes. He stretched out his hand and flicked the lapel in front of his chest. Then, with an arrogant expression on his face, he replied, Your Excellency, why do you say that? When did Wind Shadow betray you? His arrogant expression and contemptuous gaze made the hidden dragon Blessing, whose anger had reached its limit, slowly calm down. After its huge dragon eyes swept over Mu Fengying and the dragon head scepter in his hand, its expression gradually returned to its original arrogance when it ruled the Pure World Organization. Since you, Mu Fengying, did not betray me, then now hand over the scepter of fate that symbolizes the leader, then turn around and return to Hidden Dragon City to reflect on your mistakes. Haha. Mu Fengying couldn't help but laugh heartily when he heard that the hidden dragon Luck couldn't differentiate reality from death. After laughing for nearly 20 seconds, Mu Fengying, who suddenly stopped laughing, asked with a frosty expression. Your Excellency, don't you think the order just now is ridiculous? In other words, what right do you have to order me now? Mu Fengying, didn't you just say that you have never betrayed me? The hidden dragon Blessing, who had gradually calmed down, asked with a calm expression. Then, as the founder of the Pure World Organization, why don't I have the right to order you? Cultivation. Strength. Mu Fengying, who suddenly took a step forward, said with a face full of arrogance. In the past, you had the right to order me because you had the strength to defeat me with the help of the hidden dragon fortress of the 5 regions and the suppression of the rules of heaven. Now, without the support of the hidden dragon fortress of the 5 regions and the support of the rules of heaven, you are just a dying ant in front of me, the king of Pure World. What right do you have to order me? The change in the way he addressed Mu Fengying and the idea that strength determined status finally let the hidden dragon Blessing know what kind of person Mu Fengying was. The anger in its heart because of the betrayal completely disappeared. At the same time, it decided to use the previous methods to continue to suppress and subdue the subordinate that it had carefully cultivated and recognized as the most powerful. Fine. In that case, I will show you, Mu Fengying, that even without the support of the hidden dragon fortress of the 5 regions and the support of the rules of heaven, I am still the founder of the Pure World Organization. After roaring to the sky, the purple hidden dragon Blessing directly, the hidden dragon Blessing rushed toward Mu Fengying. As for Mu Fengying, whose eyes flashed with contempt, he waved his robe, planning to directly shatter the purple divine dragon formed by the hidden dragon Blessing. After all, the difference between the strength of a second tribulation immortal realm expert and a peak 9th stage martial god realm expert was like the difference between heaven and earth. He could kill the hidden dragon Blessing with his terrifying aura alone. However, just as the strength of Mu Fengying's sleeve was about to hit the purple hidden dragon Blessing, the purple hidden dragon Blessing suddenly exploded, instantly forming a purple cloud. At the same time, the dragon head scepter in Mu Fengying's hand also released a dense purple cloud, which quickly enveloped Mu Fengying. Damn the hidden dragon Blessing! How dare you imprison the dragon head scepter and my body? Mu Fengying, who was enveloped by the purple cloud, did not panic at all at first. He believed that with the terrifying strength of the second tribulation immortal realm, he could easily shatter the purple cloud. However, when he began to circulate the God force in his dantian and the soul force in his sea of consciousness, he suddenly discovered that almost 99% of his God force and soul force had been forcefully sealed up. He immediately guessed that the hidden dragon Fate had already left behind a method to seal him up when he first began to nurture him. He could not help but curse furiously. The purple cloud formed by the hidden dragon Blessing did not respond. It just merged with the purple cloud that emerged from the dragon head scepter and kept shrinking. Just as Mu Fengying was enveloped by the purple cloud formed by the hidden dragon Blessing, the terrifying Qi that had stayed in Double Bull City for a while instantly descended on the edge of the mountain range. Then, the figure of the 5th terrifying expert appeared. This is... When they saw the 5th terrifying expert standing on the edge of the mountain range, Yuhauran and Thaling's eyes revealed a trace of shock and guilt. The fifth terrifying expert was a giant spirit-devouring ant that was over 100 meters tall and emitted golden light all over its body. Yuhauran obtained the 5 primordial gems that could transform chaotic spiritual chi for the first time in Thaling when he slaughtered nearly 10 million spirit-devouring ants. Boy, it's you! The giant spirit-devouring ant that had just descended on the edge of the mountain range immediately felt a trace of a familiar aura. When it looked up and saw Yuhauran standing on the peak of the mountain and realized that he was the murderer who had stolen the primordial gems from the underground of the Blood Mist Mountains, the giant spirit-devouring ant immediately became furious and rushed into the mountain range with murderous intent. Boom! However, the moment the giant spirit-devouring ant rushed into the mountain range, a purple go-piece with a speed that transcended the barriers of time and space heavily hit the giant spirit-devouring ant. Then, Zhuori, who was sitting cross-legged on the silver go-board, shouted and immediately controlled the go-board to rush toward the giant spirit-devouring ant King of Hell. Your opponent is us. Triple annihilation. The King of Hell, who hadn't been injured in nearly 10 million years, roared angrily and rushed toward the chessboard of annihilation controlled by triple annihilation after seeing the wound that was almost half a meter long on its strong ant leg. Don't destroy the home of the Destiny's child. Activate the go-board space. Zhuori, who was meticulous, immediately ordered Silvermoon and Fanxing when he saw the King of Hell rushing over with a terrifying aura that constantly destroyed the exotic beasts and trees in the mountain range. Then, Zhuori, Silvermoon, and Fanxing activated the go-board with all their strength and burst out a dazzling purple light. The purple light quickly enveloped the giant spirit-devouring ant and began to shrink rapidly. In the end, only an exquisite go-board was left floating in the void of the mountain range. Yuhauran continued to absorb and refine the rewards of the gods' tribulation thunder punishment. Leave the rest of the opponents to me and Shueshu. The unexpected betrayal of triple annihilation and dire beast roar directly reduced the threat of the 4 terrifying experts. Although the hidden dragon Lux cultivation was not high, it could still completely suppress the King of Purification, Mu Fengying, with the help of the confinement method set up before. Thus, the threat of the 5th terrifying expert was reduced. Chapter 2031. In the mountains where the 100 Chi Gate was located. Okay. After hearing Thaling's order, Yuhauran nodded without thinking too much. He then sat cross-legged on the peak and used the destiny cultivation method and devouring technique to absorb the rewards from the gods' tribulation thunder. At the same time, he also diverted part of his attention to pay attention to the 6th terrifying expert that was about to descend on the edge of the mountains. This was because he wanted to know who the terrifying expert from the Death Swamp, one of the 10 forbidden lands in the Tianxian continent, was. After all, among the 10 forbidden lands in his previous life, the Death Swamp was one of the forbidden lands that he had entered the most and had the deepest grudges with. Just as Thaling used his mind to summon the Blood Void Beast and the others who had entered the mansion in advance, the last terrifying aura that was powerful enough to shake the stars descended on the edge of the mountains. After seeing the appearance of the last terrifying expert that descended on the edge of the mountains, Thaling and Yuhauran were shocked at the same time. The long-armed ape, who was about to complete the ancestral awakening, began to tremble violently and began to transform uncontrollably. Fortunately, Thaling, who knew what was going on, immediately put the long-armed ape into his victor to prevent him from being controlled by the 6th terrifying expert that descended on the edge of the mountains using the same bloodline. Monkey King Sun Wukong, the master of Buddhism, who was about 30,000 meters away from the mountains, saw the last terrifying expert that descended on the edge of the mountains. His body trembled violently, and he could not help but cry out in horror in his heart. As for Xingtian Supreme, who was 50,000 meters away, he glanced at the edge of the mountain range with a complicated expression. After that, a strong battle intent flashed through his eyes, and he directly rose into the air, and flew into the endless void. Yu Haoran's gaze shifted from the sixth terrifying expert to Xingtian Supreme, who was flying into the endless void. He had already guessed the reason why Xingtian Supreme was heading into the endless void. A fierce and cold light flashed across his eyes. Yu Haoran began to quickly form hand seals with his 10 fingers. Using the inexhaustible milky white energy and Fushi's 8 trigrams, he began to forcibly seal and transfer a dead star in the boundless void. In this regard, Thowling only sighed with a complicated expression, but he did not stop him from sealing the silent star. The terrifying expert standing in the void at the edge of the mountain range did not stop Yu Haoran from condensing the imprint either. After Yu Haoran used Fushi's 8 trigrams to completely seal and conceal the aura of the dead planet, the sixth terrifying expert standing at the edge of the mountain range spoke slowly. My surname is Sun, and my name is Wukong. I was once the demon king of the water curtain cave of Huagua Mountain. I am also known as the Great Sage, Heaven's Equal, and the Fighting Immortal Buddha. Junior Yu Haoran greets the Great Sage, Heaven's Equal. Hearing Sun Wukong's self-introduction, Yu Haoran hurriedly stood up and bowed solemnly. After all, before his cultivation reached the martial sage realm, he had accidentally obtained the Great Sage, Heaven's Equal staff technique, which had helped him through several crises. Sun Wukong nodded at Yu Haoran, who was bowing solemnly to him, and said with a gentle expression, Yu Haoran, I'm not here to destroy your opportunity to pass the heavenly tribulation, nor to help you deal with the unfinished tribulation. I just want to express my gratitude in person. Thank you for unlocking the seal on the Rui Jingu Bang and allowing it to return to my side. After taking out a golden needle that emitted a golden light from his ear, Sun Wukong threw the golden needle into the air. Subsequently, the golden needle expanded in the wind and regained its glory in the ancient times. It turned into a huge golden staff that was like a heavenly pillar. Immediately after, the huge golden staff shook 3 times at Yu Haoran before turning back into a golden needle and returning to Sun Wukong's ear. Goodbye. After nodding calmly, Sun Wukong flew up into the air and left the mountain range. He then returned to the swamp at the border of the central region and the western region. After watching Sun Wukong leave the mountain range, Yu Haoran, who was sitting cross-legged on the mountain peak again, used his divine consciousness to discuss with Thowling and the blood void beast the message that Sun Wukong had left behind. It seemed unintentional, but in fact, it was out of goodwill. A tribulation that was not over yet. Other than the projections of the peak 9th grade sovereign and half-tribulation immortal realm experts in the endless void, as well as the half-tribulation immortal realm experts hidden in the rules of heaven and the forbidden zone, there was no other tribulation that the world did not know about. It was a pity that neither the knowledgeable Thowling nor Yu Haoran, who had inherited the memory of the Destiny Stone Tablet, could find anything that could threaten them. However, considering Sun Wukong's cultivation and strength, as well as his honest character in the recent ancient times, both Yu Haoran and Thowling knew that he would not deceive them. Therefore, to be safe, Thowling ordered the blood void beast, Lu Yuan, and the others to activate the array that was set up in the mountain range in advance to prevent a sudden tribulation. As for Yu Haoran, other than leaving a trace of his divine consciousness to pay attention to the changes in the mountain range, he did his best to absorb and devour the milky white energy so that he could end the tribulation as soon as possible. At that time, no matter how dangerous the tribulation was, he would be able to attack without any scruples and leave without any regrets. Time passed by second. Not only did the tribulation that they had been defending themselves against not come, but the 5 terrifying experts and the hidden dragon luck had also emerged one after another. The first pair of terrifying experts to emerge victorious was the ferocious beast Qi and the Bone King who had entered the world of bones. As the bone city floating in the air above the mountain range ignited with black flames, the Bone King's exasperated voice could be heard from the Bone City. "Damned she, I admit defeat. Hurry up and retract your flames. Don't destroy the Bone City of Bones that I have spent so much effort to create." As the Bone King admitted defeat, the black flames that were burning the Bone City quickly retreated. After that, the ferocious beast Chi rushed out of the Bone City. Then, the Bone King, who was in low spirits, also rushed out of the Bone City. "Chi, the mountains will not change, and the water will always flow. You and I will fight to the death in the immeasurable calamity." After leaving behind a provocative remark, Bone King returned to the forbidden area of the central region, White Bone City, without looking back. The ferocious beast Chi nodded at Yuhauran and returned to the bottom of the Green Lake mountain range. The second pair of experts to emerge victorious was the Hidden Dragon Luck and the Purifying World King Mu Fengying. Although Mu Fengying's cultivation had reached the second tribulation immortal realm, he had been restrained by the Hidden Dragon Luck when he had just stepped onto the martial path. As a result, he could only display less than 1,000th of his terrifying strength. Therefore, as the purple clouds continued to shrink, Mu Fengying, who was constantly attacked and injured by the Hidden Dragon Luck, had no choice but to admit defeat. "Lord Hidden Dragon Luck, I admit defeat." As the Purifying World King Mu Fengying admitted defeat, the purple clouds stopped shrinking and condensed into a purple divine dragon again. Chapter 2032. In the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located, the purple divine dragon formed by the hidden dragon blessing looked at the dragon head scepter in its claw with a hint of sadness in its eyes. Then, it threw the dragon head scepter to Yuhauran, who was absorbing the milky white energy. "My young friend, take this scepter of fortune as an apology from Mu Fengying for offending you." Fortunately, Yuhauran had reserved some energy to communicate with Thaling and the Blood Void Beast. Therefore, when he saw the dragon head scepter thrown to him by the hidden dragon blessing, he quickly reached out to catch it. Seeing Yuhauran reach out to catch the dragon head scepter, the hidden dragon blessing continued with a complicated expression. "My young friend, with the scepter of fortune and the dragon scale I gave you before, you can completely control purification. You don't have to worry about them having any disloyalty. As for Mu Fengying, I'll bring him back to the virtual zone for the time being. After he's completely worn away his ambitions and thoughts that he shouldn't have, I'll let him assist you in your great cause of destroying the world." After quickly putting away the dragon head scepter, Yuhauran hurriedly cupped his fists and thanked it. "Thank you for your care, Senior. My young friend, goodbye." After nodding, the purple divine dragon formed by the hidden dragon blessing stretched out its claw and cut open the void in front of it. It quickly disappeared into the void of the mountain range with Mu Fengying. Boom! Just as the void that the purple divine dragon had cut open was slowly closing, a deafening roar suddenly sounded in the void of the mountain range. Accompanied by the deafening roar, a black dot that looked like an ant flew out of the chessboard floating in the void of the mountain range. The moment the black dot left the horizontal board, its body began to grow abruptly. Soon, it became a giant spirit-devouring ant that was more than 100 meters tall. However, the giant spirit-devouring ant, which was originally majestic, was now in a very sorry state. 2 of its strong legs had been forcibly broken, and dozens of wounds of varying depths had appeared on its shining golden body. At the same time, on the silver chessboard, Scorching Sun, Yin, and Fanxing's faces were as pale as paper. Their auras had fallen to the martial god level. In other words, the spirits of 3 extinguishers and the King of Hell were both injured and defeated. Thaling attacked. Since it was a tie, perhaps only the giant spirit-devouring ant knew whether the King of Hell, who had a personal grudge against it, would leave. Yuhauran, who had always been taking advantage of the situation, immediately ordered Thaling to attack the heavily injured King of Hell. Sword. After hearing Yuhauran's order, Thaling did not hesitate and shouted towards the depths of the mountain range. Accompanied by Thaling's roar, a sword that exuded a strong bloody aura, a sharp sword aura, a strong aura of grievance, and a strong murderous aura quickly appeared in his hand. Kill immortal and destroy soul. Holding the square sword tightly in his hand, Thaling immediately performed a swordsmanship of the peak supreme level. The bloody sword aura created by the swordsmanship crossed the barrier of time and space and directly chopped at the giant spirit-devouring ant's hard skull. Damn it! The giant spirit-devouring ant had been severely injured by the rules of destruction contained in the destroyer chessboard. Its strength had fallen to the peak of the immortal realm. Sensing that the sword aura created by Supreme Violet Spirit's swordsmanship had reached the middle stage of the immortal realm, the giant spirit-devouring ant could not help cursing. It immediately used the 2 purple antennae on its head to resist the sword aura that contained bloody aura, murderous aura, grievance, and murderous aura. Puff, puff. With the sound of 2 objects being cut off, the 2 antennae on the giant spirit-devouring ant's head were easily cut off by the sword aura. Then, the sword aura, which had not lost much power, heavily chopped at the giant spirit-devouring ant's hard skull. Boom! Accompanied by a dull roar, a wound about 2 meters long was directly cut on the skull of the giant spirit-devouring ant, and a brown gemstone-like stone was exposed. A chaos spirit stone that contains the origin of the rules of destruction. When they saw the brown stone in the head of the giant spirit-devouring ant, whether it was the tower spirit, blood void beast, spirits of 3 annihilation, or the peak 9th grade sovereign and half-tribulation immortal realm experts in the endless void, they all shouted out the origin of the brown stone with greed in their eyes. When the giant spirit-devouring ant saw that its most important and fatal secret was exposed in front of everyone, a trace of panic appeared in its eyes. It opened its mouth and spat out a gray gas that enveloped its skull and chaos spirit stone. After that, it turned around and fled in the direction of the central region. Don't even think about escaping. Seeing the giant spirit-devouring ant turn around and flee, spirits of 3 annihilation quickly swallowed a 9th grade level 1 divine pill and hurriedly drove the destroyer chessboard to chase after it. At the same time, more than 40 half-tribulation immortal realm experts in the endless void quickly condensed the projections of 90% of their strength and sped up toward the central region of the Tianxian continent. Although Thaling and Blood Void Beast also wanted to seize the opportunity to chase after the giant spirit-devouring ant and fight for the Chaos Spirit Stone that could help them reach the half-tribulation immortal realm easily, when they saw Yu Haoran receiving the God Tribulation Thunder punishment and thought of the tribulation mentioned by the great sage, Heaven's equal, Sun Wukong, they finally suppressed their greed and could not help but sigh. However, neither Yu Haoran, who was the main body, nor Thaling, who was the device spirit of the victor, discovered the first doppelganger that had quietly left the victor. The Chaos Spirit Stone was a kind of energy crystal that was of a higher grade than spirit stones and innate crystals. In the Chaos Spirit Stone, there was not only a huge amount of pure Chaos Spirit Chi, but also a trace of the origin of the rules of destruction. If one could use the Chaos Spirit Stone to cultivate, a supreme existence who had just reached the supreme realm would be able to reach the peak of the third tribulation immortal realm in 3 years at most. If a peak of the third tribulation immortal realm expert used the Chaos Spirit Stone, he would also be able to reach the peak of the third tribulation immortal realm in half a month and become the strongest expert before the heaven and earth were destroyed. This was also the reason why the half-tribulation immortal realm experts in the endless void were willing to risk offending the rules of heaven for the 3rd time and continue to condense their projections to descend upon the Tianxian continent. Sigh. Yu Haoran also could not help but sigh after the detailed records of the Chaos Spirit Stone flashed through his mind. In fact, he did want to snatch the Chaos Spirit Stone that could help him reach the peak of the third tribulation immortal realm in a short period of time. However, the reality that he lacked the help of a peak of the Third Tribulation Immortal Realm expert made him not qualified to participate in the fight for the Chaos Spirit Stone. Chapter 2033. In the mountain where the 100 Chi Gate was located. As the half-tribulation Immortal Realm experts in the Endless Void and Tianxian continent went after the giant spirit-devouring ants with the Chaos Spirit Stones, the mountain where the 100 Chi Gate was located fell into silence. Yu Haoran, who forcibly dispelled his greed for the Chaos Spirit Stones, knew that there wouldn't be any danger in a short period of time, so he continued to absorb and devour the milky white energy rewarded by the God Tribulation Thunder penalty to improve his cultivation and strength. In this state of concentration, it only took him less than 10 minutes to successfully raise his cultivation base to the limit of the complete 10th grade martial God realm. By absorbing and devouring the chaotic energy from the 8th God Tribulation Thunder penalty, as well as the power of the rules of destruction, the mystery of the law of life and death that was about to advance to the next level allowed him to directly break through to the Supreme Realm. However, the experience of breaking through to the Martial God, Emperor Wu, Martial Venerable, and Martial Saint Realm made him deeply understand how important it was to accumulate before breaking through to the next level. Therefore, after forcibly suppressing the urge to break through to the Supreme Realm, Yu Haoran began to use the milky white energy to break through to the Supreme Realm. 10 minutes later, the bottleneck of the physical body grade that had been raised to the pinnacle showed signs of loosening. Without any hesitation, he took out a drop of myriad drug milk that he extorted from the ancient demon clan, and then combined it with the milky white energy rewarded by the God Tribulation Thunder penalty to break through to the Supreme Realm. Boom! 2 minutes later, as a dull thunder sounded from Yu Haoran's body, a powerful aura that could shatter the void barrier immediately emerged from his body. However, the moment the powerful aura emerged, Yu Haoran quickly withdrew it. Other than the blood void beast and the others who were guarding their positions, who vaguely sensed the aura of his breakthrough, the Master of Buddhism, who continued to hide 30,000 meters away from the mountain, and the peak 9th grade martial artists in the Endless Void didn't notice anything unusual. Yu Haoran used the milky white energy he absorbed and devoured to increase the divine power in his Dantian after successfully breaking through the Supreme Martial Artist realm and advancing to the early 1st grade Supreme Martial Artist realm. In less than 10 minutes, with the help of the milky white energy and myriad drug milk, Yang Kai's Dantian successfully broke through the bottleneck and advanced to the Venerable Realm. Just like the breakthrough of the physical body, the powerful aura formed by the breakthrough of divine power was forcefully suppressed and withdrawn by Yu Haoran before it could truly emerge. Other than the blood void beast, Lu Yuan, and the others who were familiar with his thaling technique and vaguely aware that his divine power had reached the Supreme Being realm, they did not notice anything else. After his divine power had advanced to the early 1st stage of the Supreme Martial Artist realm, he absorbed and devoured the milky white energy rewarded by the God's Tribulation lightning and used it all to increase the grade of his soul power. Similarly, it took him less than 10 minutes to successfully advance to the Supreme Martial Artist realm. After his soul power had advanced to the early 1st stage of the Supreme Martial Artist realm, Yu Haoran divided half of his energy to continue absorbing and devouring the milky white energy to increase the grade of his physical body, divine power, and soul power. The other half of his energy was to rely on the huge amount of information inherited from the Destiny Stone Tablet, the inherited memories of the 12 ancient witches, to break through to the Supreme Martial Artist realm. Breaking through to the Supreme Martial Artist realm not only required the power of law to advance, but also rich experience to broaden one's horizons. Luckily, Yu Haoran had inherited the memories of the Destiny Stone Tablet, the memories of the ancient 12 ancestral shamans, and the rich experiences of his previous life. All of these made Yu Haoran's experience not any less than those half-tribulation, immortal realm expert. Therefore, when his physical body, divine power, and soul power had advanced to the peak of the second-grade martial artist realm, his mental state, which was the most difficult to break through, had also successfully broken through to the supreme martial artist realm. At this time, almost 2 hours had passed since the god's tribulation lightning. The lightning pool that was originally big enough to cover the entire mountain range had shrunk by 2/3, leaving only the size of a primeval forest. According to the size of the remaining lightning pool and the speed at which he was absorbing and devouring the milky white energy, Yuhauran knew that the reward of the god's tribulation lightning would disappear completely in at most 20 minutes. He had passed the god's tribulation lightning safely this time. However, thinking back to the time when he had successfully comprehended the power of the law of space by the Green Lake in the Green Lake mountain range, a strange feeling suddenly emerged in his heart. If he returned to the 100 gate of his martial Tao, he would have an unexpected gain. Yuhauran continued to absorb and devour the milky white energy while recalling the whole process of breaking through to the martial god realm. He didn't have the strange feeling of gain, which made him feel slightly disappointed. However, when he thought of the 9 thunder tribulations and the endless rewards of the god's tribulation lightning to completely transform his cultivation and strength, the disappointment disappeared in an instant. As Yuhauran absorbed and devoured the milky white energy again without any distractions, the area of the lightning pool in the void above the mountain range shrunk continuously. The Thaling, blood-void beast, and the others who had been vigilant of their surroundings gradually relaxed their vigilance, and the area of control of the divine telekinesis cloth also shrunk continuously. Therefore, no one noticed that the clouds in the void above the mountain range gradually became moist, and no one noticed that the dense forests and mountains in the southern region were filled with a lot of mist. Of course, nothing was absolute. The master of Buddhism, who was hiding in the void about 30,000 meters away from the mountain range, had already noticed the subtle changes in the southern region in advance. Originally, the master of Buddhism, who was only a third-grade sovereign, had already lost the chance to kill Yuhauran and seize the destiny of the Destiny Stone Tablet and the Divine Sea Suppressing Pearl from the Destiny Child, as well as the Destiny Stone Tablet and the Divine Sea Suppressing Pearl, as the master of Buddhism was only a third-grade sovereign. The reason why Yuhauran did not leave immediately was that the great sage, heaven's equal, Sun Wukong, seemed to be unintentional. However, he was actually kindly reminding Yuhauran that the calamity was not really over. The master of Buddhism knew Sun Wukong, the great sage, heaven's equal, better than most people. This was because when Sun Wukong was in the late ancient era, when he was troubled by his inability to break through to the supreme realm, he had converted to Buddhism for a long period of time. He had also been conferred the title of the Fighting Immortal Buddha by Sun Wukong. Sun Wukong knew that Sun Wukong was a man who never lied. Since he said that Yuhauran's tribulation wasn't over yet, there would definitely be another tribulation before the end of the god's tribulation. The great sage, heaven's equal, was at the peak of the second tribulation immortal realm, so the calamity he took seriously was no less dangerous than a half-tribulation immortal realm expert. Chapter 2034. In the mountain range where the 100 gate was located, fog. Other than the monsters and beasts of the water element, I'm afraid only the powerful monsters of the endless sea area can form so much fog in such a short period of time. Seeing more and more fog emerging from the dense forests and mountains of the southern region, the knowledgeable master of Buddha Way quickly guessed the reason and origin of the fog. The divine beasts of the sea area, who rarely intervene in the disputes of the continent, must be worried that the immeasurable calamity will also bring about the extinction of the sea area. Then, their purpose of taking the risk to appear in the southern region this time should be the same as the experts in the endless void. They intend to kill Yuhauran and transfer the destiny of the Destiny's Child, so that they can obtain the hope of continuing the inheritance of the entire race. Thinking of this, the master of Budaway looked through the void barrier at Yuhauran, who was sitting cross-legged on the peak, and his eyes revealed a hint of pride as he muttered to himself. Since the sea area has never been affected by the destruction of the ancient, middle, and near-ancient times, the strength that they have accumulated over countless years has probably reached a terrifying level. Faced with the sneak attack of countless experts in the sea area, Yuhauran will definitely die. When less than 1% of the thunder pool in the void of the mountain range was left, Faling, who knew that the divine tribulation thunder punishment was about to end, heaved a sigh of relief. He then began to call the blood void beast, Lu Yuan, and the others to remove the formation that had consumed almost all the savings of the prince's mansion. However, at this moment, the sword without trace's unintentional words immediately alerted him. It's not raining today. Why is there so much fog in the mountain range? Faling quickly scanned the entire mountain range with his divine thought and discovered that there were as many as 99 spots of fog in the mountain range. His expression changed drastically as he sped up toward Yuhauran and shouted loudly to the blood void beast and the others. Everyone, return to your positions and get ready for battle. Just as the pagoda spirit finished its warning, the mist in 99 locations in the mountain range suddenly began to churn. As the mist churned, one after another, demonic beasts at the Supreme Being realm charged out from the mist. Then, all of them charged towards Yuhauran with murderous intent. Damn it! This is a water-type demonic beast from the sea. When Faling saw the 99 huge demon beasts rushing out from the mist, and all of them had reached the level of Supreme, he pointed out the origin of these demon beasts in exasperation, and finally understood the calamity mentioned by the great sage equal to heaven, Sun Wukong. Die. Although Faling's carelessness had caused him to be unable to lend a hand in time, the life-stealing spirit rat, who could control the fate of all living beings and had also reached the supremacy stage, had already sensed the invasion of the sea monsters in advance. The reason why Yuhauran didn't inform Faling in advance was mainly because he didn't want to alarm the 9 terrifying sea monsters hidden in different locations in the southern mountain range. He didn't want to ruin his secret retreat plan. Seeing that Faling's unexpected detection had caused the Supreme Being sea monsters hidden in the mountains to attack in advance, Yuhauran could only give up the remaining milky white energy to counterattack. The Yuan massacre sword that instantly appeared in his hand directly slashed at a tiger-head shark whose fate could be controlled by the life-stealing spirit rat. Puff! As the blood-red sword chi slashed out by the Yuan massacre sword directly killed the divine soul of the tiger-head shark, Yuhauran quickly appeared beside Faling using the space law abstruse martial technique of instant teleportation. Then, he ordered the blood void beast and the others who were about to use their prearranged means to kill the 98 sea monsters. Everyone, listen up. Return to the prince's mansion immediately. Yuhauran, with the means we've arranged in advance, we can completely kill these Supreme Being sea monsters. There's no need to temporarily avoid them at all. Seeing that Yuhauran, who had just finished the divine tribulation thunder punishment, was planning to evacuate the prince's mansion with everyone, Faling reminded him in confusion. Faling, these Supreme Being sea monsters are just pawns used to delay our escape from the mountains. The real danger comes from the terrifying experts hidden in different parts of the southern region. As soon as Yuhauran finished his explanation, the aura of 9 terrifying experts erupted in succession from the dense forests and mountains in different parts of the mountains. After sensing the terrifying aura that was not inferior to that of the ferocious beast Denglong, Faling did not continue to hesitate. He immediately mobilized the divine senses of a peak 9th grade Supreme Being, intending to transfer the prince's mansion into the body of the victor. Purple Spirit, wait a moment. However, just as the divine senses enveloped the prince's mansion and were about to forcibly transfer it into the body of the victor, a familiar voice suddenly sounded in the ears of Faling and Yuhauran. Accompanied by the familiar voice, A white-haired old man in a green robe with a kind smile instantly appeared in front of Thaling and Yuhauran at a speed that transcended time and space. "Old friend." Thaling's face revealed a look of surprise as he cried out involuntarily, "Senior Su?" Yuhauran's eyes revealed a trace of confusion as he said. This was because the old man in green robe, who suddenly appeared in front of him, was the knowledgeable Grandmaster Su Hongwen, who he had met when he first entered Xianyang City after his rebirth. However, at that time, Su Hongwen's cultivation was only at the peak of the 9th grade martial saint realm. Now, he could not see through his true cultivation. Purple Spirit, since the ancient continent was destroyed, you and I have not seen each other for hundreds of millions of years. Looking at Thaling's face that revealed a look of surprise, the old man in green robe sighed with a complicated expression. "That's right." After retracting the surprised smile on his face, Thaling also nodded with a complicated expression and said, "However, I have seen one of your incarnations traveling the continent in Xianyang City and the hidden dragon fortress of the central domain." Incarnation. The omniscient Su Hongwen that he met and the old man in green robe who dared to interfere in the hidden dragon ranking battle were actually incarnations of this mysterious old man in front of him. This made Yuhauran feel extremely shocked, and at the same time, extremely interested in the true origin of this mysterious old man in front of him. Alas! Hearing Thaling mention the incarnation that traveled the continent, the old man in green robe could not help but sigh softly and said in a somewhat unhappy tone, "My incarnation was inexplicably killed some time ago. Although he used a special secret method to send back some of the more important information, he lost a lot of information about his travels in the continent. Not only did he not have the slightest anger when his incarnation was destroyed, he only felt regret because he could not learn about his travels." Yuhauran was quite surprised by the nature of the old man in green robe in front of him. After complaining unhappily, the old man in green robe looked at Yuhauran and greeted him with a satisfied and kind smile on his face. "You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.